Fingers crossed.
Okay, I got a green lights. Here's my intro.
Hi, this is Dale Lear, designer of TRS-80 Color Baseball, and you're listening to CoCoTALK.
CoCoTALK is rocking the 8-bit world, keeping the tandy flame alive. We may be mocked, but we'll never stop, 'cause CoCoTALK is rocking the 8-bit world.
This is CoCoTALK, the world's leading live talk show featuring the Tandy Color computer. It's time to drop your socks and grab your real-time clocks, and let's rock.
CoCoTALK is rocking the 8-bit world, keeping the tandy flame alive. We may be mocked, but we'll never stop, 'cause CoCoTALK is rocking the 8-bit world.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of CoCoTALK.
Yes, it is.
And for a second there, we had Steve.
I'm here.
Oh, there you are. So like I saw you somewhere.
Those magic Hollywood squares, they move around.
I'll take Nick Moreau to the block.
So welcome everyone to the show. And Steve, did you want to take over main hosting duty since you're here now, or?
Oh, why don't you go ahead and get it started? You know how to introduce everybody.
Yeah, and I can make up their names as I go along, so that's cool.
Yep.
Call me Al. Don't call me Betty.
Okay,
Anyway,
Shirley.
Hopefully the names don't bounce around too much. I know last week it was shifting all over the place, but we'll just kind of go around and see what everybody's been up to the last week. Any new acquisitions, new stuff you've been working on, cool things you've done. Starting with Mr. Timberman himself, Ron Delvo.
Hello, everybody. How's it going? I got me a new STC. I got a GMC card, which I put in this case, and I haven't gotten it working yet because I haven't downloaded the testing programs. Is there any software made for that yet?
For which one?
Only comes on cartridge.
Yeah, the Farfall Game Master edition is out, but that comes with the Game Master on the cartridge already. So
okay.
Myro has some videos on doing some programming and stuff. If you want.
Yeah, and there's some games in development. I think Steve Bamford's doing one that uses it as well. He's got some demo.
Right.
Cool. Then I've been writing Outside in the Sun, and we'll have a report on that. And just been playing with my toys in my garage. What can you ask for? The greatest thing.
Sounds good. And we'll get to your retro biting in a little bit later. I know there's been a few people trying it besides yourself too, so we'll kind of see what everybody's results have been. They've been pretty good, I think, so far overall.
Yep, not bad.
Mm-hmm.
Myself personally, I haven't done too much. I've been answering a lot of questions on Discord and some of the chats. I've got my CoCoVJ set up, so I'm starting to work on things there. Go ahead, Ron.
Well, do you actually get sun up there?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
I haven't tried retrobriding anything yet.
Good luck with that.
So basically, I've been starting to work on Dave Phillipson's code because we've been trying to get the CoCoVGA, or not the CoCoVGA, the CoCoMem Junior 2 meg RAM board for the Coco 1, 2, and Dragon to work with Nitrous 9 level 2, not level 1. So I just started getting I got the code from him earlier this week, and I've just been starting to go through it and trying to figure out, how it's working right now. It partly boots and then it freezes, so hopefully I'll make some progress on that this upcoming week. But that's about it from me. So on to Mr. Mark Overholzer.
Hey, the Apple guy. So I got at CocoFest, I got some little ROM boards from David Ladd. They're actually Mark J. Blair's, but they've been modified. And so I thought I needed to get some cartridges for them. So strangely enough, Cloud9 had these for $1 a piece. So I bought 10.
Of just Castle of Theriod or just
Yes.
cartridges in general?
Just Castle Theragood. Yeah, Theragraph.
Wow, you're an avid collector, that one.
I'm going to have lots of manuals if somebody wants one. But anyway, so I'm planning on put the little ROM cartridge things there. I need to send one to Qui-Gon. So anyway, that's about the only thing new since last week. So,
what do you plan on putting in there?
Well, Qui-Gon actually wanted like HDB DOS. So David Ladd actually put together a ROM that has basically Coco 1, 2, and 3, as well as RS-232 pack on a 64, K-bit.
Well, I'd be interested in that.
Okay. Anyway, I basically just use the jumpers. So whatever Coco you put it in, you can select which one you want. It's all set up for it. So
that'd be great.
Excellent.
Cool. Next up is Jason Reggert on location at Ham Nation. Did I get it right this time?
Hamvention.
Hamvention. I got it wrong. Oh well.
Ham Nation's the Ham Radio podcast. You're close.
Yeah. At any rate, you found a wicked haul. We're going to go through it in a little bit here too. Any other interesting things you've seen there that might be Coco related or retro computer related?
I did see some other Coco stuff. It was a couple Coco 2s, a couple disk drives, a little more than I wanted to pay, so I passed on it. But I did pick up an Atari 600, I believe it is, and a couple Atari drives, like a 1050, and they're heavy. They're big and heavy. I know that. Like, what is this? Yeah, this is a 810, and it's pretty honking big and heavy. But that was and I did pick up the getting started for your Coco 2 manual. I picked that up for a couple bucks too, along with one of these. I think it's a book like how many things you can do with like your Apple II GS or one of those type of books. But, other than the other stuff that I got that we'll talk about later.
Okay, cool. It sounds like to me, and I'm just trying to remember from last year, I think there was more Coco related stuff this year than last year. Is that correct?
Absolutely. Last year, the only thing I found was a couple books. This is actually the first year at Hamvention that I've seen many Coco things at all, other than just a couple books in the last quite a few years. And for those who don't know, Hamvention is held near Dayton, Ohio. It's at the Greene County Fairgrounds, actually just right outside of a town called Xenia in southwestern Ohio. And it's the world's largest gathering of amateur or ham radio enthusiasts. And it's actually a three-day event, and we're on day 2 today here on Saturday. And
they all wear hats like that, you said.
Not everyone, but
just the stylish ones.
Yeah, stylish. Oh, it snaps down and everything there. There's a lot of sun because like this flea market area that I found all this stuff, and it's a fairground, so it's the infield of a horse track. So it can get a little squirrely, but it's really hot and sunny today, so I'd rather have that than rain.
It makes you look Australian, you know.
That's not a knife. That's a knife.
Well, we can get some royalty for that.
Hey, you can retrobrite something on top of that hat.
I should just retrobrite something on top of my car.
Yeah.
Or if you don't wear the hat, you can retrobrite your head like David Ladd did. But anyway.
No, but if I try to retrobrite my head, it just turns red.
Then you'll be going to the doctor.
Get onto your big haul. It's an incredible haul. It's actually the title of the show is based on what he got and for wicked price. But we'll get into that after the introductions are done. Next up is Nick Marotta, and I know you've got some things that happened.
No, it was actually a pretty quiet week for me. Not a whole lot happened. You want me to talk about it a fair bit now, or a little bit now and more later?
We'll just do the little coverage right now, and then we'll get into the full details in a bit. But
okay, well, the headline is, I know it's hard to see behind me, but I'm running one of the official 512K tester applications, which is Donkey Kong. So the big news is I've finally left the 128K slums, and I've got a 512K memory board in my Coco 3, and it makes me very happy.
That is very cool. We'll get into how you actually did the upgrade yourself too. A little
help. I get by a little help from my friends. That's a little teaser.
And Steve, I think I'll skip you for now because as soon as we've done the introductions, I'll hand the baton off to you so you can just kind of carry on right at that point.
Very good.
I also give you a chance to finish eating.
Yeah.
So now that these things are bouncing around here, hopefully I'm not going to miss anybody. But anyway, next up on the list is Brian, the Music Man Schubring. What have you been up to last week?
Hello. Not too much really going on here. It was out car shopping and that for my mom, and turns out my sister's going to do it down in Georgia, so I don't have to drive down, thank God. And now looking for a vehicle for myself to replace my slightly aged Kia.
Okay. Next up, who just popped in recently here, the madman himself, Simon Jonason. I know you've been uploading some bits of your source code from your Coco 3 demo from the fest here over the last week. Anything else been going on, Coco-wise?
Not a lot. Not a lot.
Taking a bit of a break and getting your acclimatized back to your time zone again?
Oh, yeah. I'm acclimatized again. That took about a week. So, but yeah, I'm good now. So I just thought, well, I promised people I'd upload some source code. So it's like, okay, I'll just do it. I just got to comment a lot of it, you know.
Okay, cool. Yeah, haven't had a chance to look at too much of the source code yet myself, but I plan on perusing it a bit more detailed a little bit later.
There's a lot of interesting concepts in it, but some of you will be pulling your hair out with all the self-modding, but it's what it is.
Yeah. Next up, John Strong, who just also popped on recently. What's your last week of CoCoDom been like?
Actually, I was able to start to do a little bit of coding and looking at some stuff. Not too much, but been a lot going on here. We've just put in an offer for a house that's been accepted, so we've been swamped with paperwork with that. But
how long before you move?
Well, if it goes through, it should close June 28th. If everything goes well.
And is that a bigger place where you'll have more room for your printers and all your Coco stuff?
Yes, it's a bigger place. We'll be our own place. It's in a little town, and I was hoping a little bit more country area, but it's a small town. I've got a garage, an insulated garage, which is great for northern Michigan.
Ron, you're going to have competition.
And actually, you got an antenna tower there. Okay, which I definitely noticed. I've been to Hamvention a couple of times. I haven't been at the new location, and was actually thinking about trying to make it this year. And with this coming up, it's like, okay, we got to keep all the money we can for the move. So
okay, so we should expect a bit of a pause on your Coco, but just because you're getting ready for the move, and you actually got to do the physical move itself. But after that, you'll have more room to work and hopefully a bit more time.
Yes, and so I'm actually back working on my tools some this week, adding some features. It just kind of came like it's a cool idea. I had the idea of something I want to do with it about using it to promote games. So I actually put a feature that I can enlarge my graphics several times right in the tool, and that way I can export it if I want to do a print. As you guys know, I did a poster for a Bomb Squad, and it allows me to resize the graphics right in my tool and do that and see how it's going to look. So I can blow up the sprites and everything and be able to arrange that. So I think it's going to be kind of nice because I have an idea for one of the games in works that it'd be really nice to be able to take the game graphics, enhance it just a little bit, but still keep it the 8-bit look and the same, limited color range. And,
cool. We'll have to get a demo of that once you've got it all kind of cleaned up and ready to go.
Yeah, it's still running some things a little slow because it's doing some things that, when you're doing, I've upgraded it so things, not necessarily sloppy coding, but coding that didn't need to be real tight. Now it's got to go back and be tightened up and stuff, to handle the differences of, I had it so we could go a 64 by 64 so I could handle sprites, but really didn't plan to use that as any kind of like a tile. And now I can blow up tiles up to 64 by 64 if I want, to be able not to use in the game, but to be able to then, create sections from that graphics to export for other purposes.
Okay, well, we'll definitely keep us abreast on that as we go here, and as your move goes through. I'm sure you're excited about that. Next up, now they've all bounced around again, so I got to figure out who I'm looking at here. Who did I miss? Nick Morantes.
G'day, everyone. Not too much to report, except I was going to try putting my doing the retro bright thing with my multi-pack and putting it out in the sun, but we haven't had too much sun lately, so I thought, oh, what the hell? I decided to spray paint it. So my multi-pack was very yellow when attached to my Coco 3, and it was just getting me down. I thought that looks wrong, so I used some paint that was recommended by Ed Snyder, actually, some, I think, Heirloom White or Rust-Oleum brand white paint. Spray painted the multi-pack, yeah, and it looks good. So
how's it match up with the Coco?
It's pretty close. My Coco actually is it's one of those Cocos, those late model American PAL-made Cocos, where the plastic doesn't yellow. It's a different type of plastic that they used on these last batch of Cocos here in PAL Cocos anyway. So it's still white as the day it came out of the box. So it's very white. So the multi-packs, the color that I chose for the multi-pack is a very slight yellow white, a creamy color, which probably suited most of the older Cocos better. So it's not 100% a match, but it's still pretty good. It's better than what it was, and I'm happy with it. So I now have at least something white. The only other news is I've done a bit more work on Gunstar. I've now got the aliens at least flying on the screen, so we might be able to just show off a small part of the share out a screen of that during the Game On segment.
Cool. Look forward to seeing that. Next up is Al Hartman. I don't think you've been on for a bit, so welcome. And you got a new headset, which is really cool.
Right. Got a new headset because Stevie was saying that when he transcodes the audio for the podcast, my voice was very low.
Yeah, actually, there's been a few people that it was happening to recently, so I'm glad you got the upgrade to.
Yep, got a nice Logitech headset very inexpensively on eBay.
Oh, nice.
And I'm sitting here with my Diet Dr. Thunder, no water.
Dr. Thunder?
Yes, it's the Walmart version of Diet Dr. Pepper.
Oh, it's a knockoff Dr. Pepper.
Raising a can in tribute to David Ladd. Other than that,
any new Coco acquisitions or anything this past week, or a couple weeks? No?
Not Coco acquisitions, although a new game was released for the Commodore 64, which I downloaded. Reminded me very much of Nick's Gunstar.
What game was that?
It's called Neutroid.
Yep, I've got that too. Yeah, it is. It's very Gunstar-ish.
Yeah, Neutron. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's very good.
Now, are you copying off them, or did they copy off you because your blog's been running for so long?
I don't know. It's the first time I saw that, but I mean, it's just another vertical shoot 'em up. So
yeah, they're probably just both.
Yeah, it's basically like Xevious and stuff, from way back. So it's a common genre of it's.
Yeah, that's right. So I mean, it's the different games as such, but it's.
And actually, that briefly touches on what our main discussion topic will be.
Yeah, so we can talk about all that later.
We'll leave that for later.
Yeah, definitely.
Thanks, Al. And next up is David Ladd, Sir David Ladd, Lord of the Floppy. What have you been up to the last week?
Oh, let's see here. I've been
breaking things.
So yeah, the last week I was doing some testing and soldering of the ESP board that I have for the bit banger for drive wire or modem. So I've been playing with the new firmware. Testing the modem in place of the ESP link, and so far that's been working. And plus, I like the new board layout really well on that. And then, of course, the slight alteration to the PS2 mouse adapter using a different microcontroller for another feature that been working on that you thought would be useful. So just working to see how that will work out, but that's pretty much it so far.
Cool. I know Mark and I are both looking forward to that useful part, as you put it. Next up is Boys in Tech, Larbieski. And what have you been up to the last week?
Oh, been doing a bunch of stuff. I'm just right now in shock and awe at just how organized and talent the talent on this show has risen.
And just from one absence, that's all it took.
Yeah, one absence. That's all it took. Amazing.
Did you say abscess? Absence.
Absence. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Anyway, no, I've been working on a few hardware things. I got a new ROM burner in. Well, I had it for a while, and I've been playing with it, and I'm now able to program GAL chips. So now I can do the MPI upgrades.
Oh, cool.
On the 3024s. And I also found a source for the cassette relays. Those things go out once in a while, and those relays are really hard to find, but I found a source, and I bought a bunch of them. So if anybody has any broken cassette relays on their CoCos, I can actually send you the place where I bought them, or you can buy them from me, one or the other. So and just working on new hardware stuff, and that's about it.
Cool. I should mention too the cassette relay. There's one game in particular for the Coco 1 and 2 by Whitesmith. It was Battle Stations. I think it was a battleship style game, but they actually have a little Morse code sequence at the beginning of the intro screen. It actually uses a cassette relay to click like it's doing Morse code. So if you want a good test to see if yours is about to die on you, that's probably a good game to try.
I forgot about that. I thought that was so cool back in the day.
Yeah. Shocked me the first time because I wasn't expecting it. It wasn't sound from the speakers, it was sound from inside the computer itself. I'm going, what the heck?
It's like what got loose?
Yeah, exactly. I thought maybe the program had crashed. It was just random clicks like you sometimes get. Anyway, the last person I've got on the panel here, unless somebody else bounced into the top here, is Mr. Grant Leedy with our now infamous picture of the 5 people trapped on the elevator. Because he doesn't want any of us to live that down. Mr. Grant.
Hey, how's it going, guys? How you guys doing today?
Hey,
not too bad. Now, I'm guessing you've been so busy with your chasing tornadoes and stuff here, you probably have not done much Coco stuff the last week.
Unfortunately, not. No, I'm out here in the central Kansas right now, so been
you haven't found any
tornado
Coco
season.
caches that got swept up in the tornado and landed somewhere in a farmer's field that you could just come grab stuff from?
Yeah, I'll keep my eye out for that if that happens, but unfortunately, that usually doesn't happen very often.
It's a twister. It's a twister.
If you run across a scarecrow, it's okay.
Yeah, Grant,
Exactly.
didn't
And
you
lions.
recently witness and video a tornado like the last couple of days?
Yes, actually, I did. I got the one in McCook, Nebraska that happened last night. And it looks like it might have been an EF2 tornado up there. So that was actually one of my I was only about a quarter to half a mile away from it. I'll get the video posted up on Discord for that later today.
So that's 2 out of what's the scale?
5.
5, isn't it? Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Actually 0 to 5. So, but yeah, so that was a good find. So
I think
it
0 is
looks
just
like,
wind, isn't it?
pretty much, yeah. It's just like a little blow, like a dust devil. So, but yeah, I got some pictures and I'll put them up on the Discord channel if you guys can look at them. I got the Dominator with the vehicle where they drive the vehicle into a tornado. I got to see that yesterday too. So, but yeah, it's been a lot of fun.
Cool.
Glad you're still here with us.
Luckily, I chased with a team of guys, so I'm not out here by myself, and we're really safe, and it's a lot of fun.
Really safe? That might be questionable.
But just
But
a
he's
comment on that, these guys are doing pictures and stuff, but we just recently had a situation that came across on the ham radio news where a team of spotters actually was able to warn a town and get people to take shelter real quick. So it does provide a very useful for the community around them.
Yeah, it's also good for scientific research too to get better predicting them and stuff too. So,
but it's not very useful when Grant is around.
Yeah, he's kind of a distraction, but
Hey, I am certified, and I am a
oh, you're certified, all right. Oh, sorry.
Thanks, Curtis. Thanks. I should have done better.
What time do we have to check him back in?
Yeah, right. Take off that funny jacket with no sleeves.
It's like when I saw the end of use page and I saw it said Dave committed. I said, yeah, it's about time.
Thanks, guys. Thanks a lot.
So have we said hi to Brian and John yet?
Brian, we did. John, yeah. We
Okay.
said hi to both of them.
I may have
So
been
the
distracted.
last one up here, and definitely not the least, because he's the host of the show today, is Mr. Steve Bjork, and I'll be passing the baton off. I will mention, just so you know, Jason wants to do a bit of a report on Hamvention, and he wants to do it near the beginning of the show here because his battery's going to run out or something silly like that.
Oh, I thought we'd just wait a little bit so that his battery would die in the middle of his thing.
It's more dramatic that way.
Did Mark B have anything to say?
Well, I did have a little. I do have an acquisition.
Oh, sorry,
this week.
I missed him because he's off in the
bottom.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm in the
Go ahead,
bottom of the squares. So I did have an acquisition this week. Got in the boomerang, got it installed, and all working good.
The Boomerang E2 or the regular Boomerang?
Yeah, the E2.
Okay.
Nice.
So the
Cool.
2 meg, and
Good job.
ease of use recognizes it.
Yep, it does.
Imagine that.
Did you play our CoCoTALK song all the way through?
I don't think I have that.
You can.
It's on the OU, so yes, you do.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So I'll have to look for it.
Go in the sound directory. You can play the whole thing.
Yeah,
Okay.
It's about 1.6 meg.
And you have to sing along. It's mandatory.
Yep. You do not have to sing along poorly like Stevie does, but you do have to sing along.
Well, why don't we go ahead and get started with Jason, have him talk about what he saw at the Hamfest. Remember, we have Coco users, not ham users out there, okay?
Right. And I am live here from Hamvention. Kind of out in the flea market parking area right now, but yeah, we'll keep it Coco and retro. I picked up some good hauls this time. Again, Hamvention's the world's largest gathering of ham radio enthusiasts, as I like to call it, or amateur radio enthusiasts, and I am one, as other ham users. Or I actually did talk to a couple people that were Coco users or knew about the show today, and fella said he had did some ham software programming back in the day to run some ham radio equipment, so that was a pretty interesting guy to talk to, and he had heard of the show, so that was pretty cool. But what I am.
How hard did they laugh when you mentioned CoCoTALK?
Oh, he's like, I've heard of that now, because I mentioned that I'd gone to Coco Fest. He's like, they're still having that. I said, yes. It's the it was, I believe, the 28th annual last Chicago Coco Fest. So he was happy to hear that was happening. So that was good stuff. But and the whole reason a lot of these conversations started because I found some items out in the park or out in the flea market area here, and got one heck of a deal. And I'll just go ahead and change the camera and show you some of this. I acquired this yesterday, so it's in the back of my car now. But I got this Coco 1.
Nicely loved.
Yeah, it's
and the original black plastic underneath, not the later white grayish plastic.
Nice keyboard,
and it has some type of aftermarket keyboard. And when I originally Mark Data Products, thank you. When I originally saw it, this was all that was on the table, and it said complete Coco system, $50. I'm like, okay, and this is all I saw. I went, man, there was actually a few keys missing, and the fellow wasn't there. It was his buddy watching his stuff. So I'm like, okay, well, I can come back. And then he showed up while I was still there looking at it. I'm like, yeah, $50 for this. I'm looking at it. I guess this seems to be the reset switch here on the front because it's just a momentary. Because if I look at the back here, I see some extra things there.
The composite looks like here, yeah.
And that's my best guess. And there's a cord running out where the reset button should be, and it terminates at it's wrapped around here, but it's just an RCA connection. But
maybe that's his RF out now, and the other one is the audio video. I'm not sure.
That is, I should have asked the guy. I didn't think about it, but
most likely one of the connectors is color, and the other one is black and white.
Oh, that could be too, yeah.
Oh, there's the Atari trackball I picked up, but that's not really Coco related.
It looks yellow. You might have to leave it in the sun.
Oh, yeah, the middle's yellow. I'll just go ahead and sit this out in the sun here. I'll sit it on the roof. There we go.
Or you can just put a new cue ball in.
Yeah.
Very cool. But
Can you get those in nuclear green?
I don't know. Cool thing was, he says, I have this whole bin of stuff here. It all goes with it. And he starts pulling out this bin of stuff. And there's a disc manual for the FD501, the MC6809 cookbook. This, I believe, is some type of OS9 manuals here.
Probably OS9 level 1, I'm guessing.
Yeah, those are level 1.
Yeah, oh, there it is. OS9 multi-programming operating system. So that's pretty cool. And you dig a little further. Here's a disk controller. I'm like, okay, great. And of course, we got the audio spectrum analyzer.
Well loved too.
That's worth $50 alone.
That's for
Especially if it's autographed.
And this mystery board here, which we kind of think maybe has multiple ROMs. I have yet to have a chance to check it, but very cool. Looks like it was probably home etched or back in the day. It looks that's pretty cool. That's neat in its own. But then on top of it, he pulls out an X-Pad.
Ooh.
And those are rare, so that's a good find.
And I've never
well over $50 just by themselves.
Yep.
That's kind of what I was thinking. I've never even owned one of these. And it has this. I don't know if this was something they made or what. There's a cardboard thing kind of.
What's your address there, Coco Man?
An alarm code.
It's 123 Fake Street.
Yeah. Where's your car right now?
My offer still stands. I'll pay $60 for the whole thing. That gives you a $10 profit. I think that's fair.
And he'll throw in shipping too.
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess this has some kind of ROM cartridge that hooks into it, and then there's the light pen here. There we go. And so that's pretty cool on its own. And then I'm not sure I'm not familiar with this. It says music on it, but there's a ribbon cable running out of it. So
probably a custom-made It's probably some kind of custom-made PC board in there, and you just use the cartridge.
Yeah, probably.
Or it says top. Oh, it says top here on the one connector, and then there's something else.
I bet you that's a floppy controller.
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering.
Actually, it looks wider. It looks more like IDE. But...
I will have to investigate that. That's
you'll have to count the pins later.
Yeah, absolutely. We will. This will make some nice. When I get back home, this will make some
first
nice
connector looks like a poor man's ROM pack Y cable.
Yeah.
Oh, that could be.
Could be. And I got a cassette cable.
Are you going to clean up that the case on that computer?
I don't know what.
Spiral bound. Nice.
Yeah, I got a spiral phone. Quick reference guide. Pretty cool. There's the controller for an FD502. And what do we got here? We have another disc controller. What is that? A 263022.
Oh, that's the original one.
Yeah, that needs a Coco 1 12 volts or the multi-pack.
All right. Now we got that. And we got a RS-232 cartridge. Well loved.
I'll take that.
I'm sure you will. And then
what was your address again?
123 Fake Street. And then we got we have an FD502.
That's a double-sided drive.
It has
double-sided drive.
Yeah, I don't need your address. I just need your call letters.
just the geolocation of your car right now. So when you go back to Hamvention, we can help your car out.
Yeah, help. Oh, yeah,
help clean it out.
Reduce the weight.
And I got this. I got a Black Beauty joystick here, and it's
the original silver handle one too.
Yeah,
nice silver handle.
Yeah, nice. Here. I never had one where I could see down in there like that, but no.
You can actually unscrew the top and use it as a thumb-based one.
I have buttons. If you lost the button, I have buttons.
Oh, very good.
Oh, good. I need a button.
I have to fix a button on one of mine. I don't know how.
Ooh, that's an actual Tandy case.
Actual Tandy case. It's a lot of coming apart. There's a lot of threads there, but And this is a Tandy portable disk drive, which I assume this is for like the Model 100, I believe.
Yes,
Correct.
it is Model 100, Model 102.
And it's got some. And there's some 3.5.
You could probably sell that on eBay and get your money back for all your purchases.
Yeah, that's
I would
rare
have to look. This is something I'm not familiar with either, so it's very, very possible. I'm making a mess in the back, but when I'm done here, I'll pack it all up again. And there were a couple binders in here. I think some of this is it's upside down back here. 6809 Flex adaptation guide. So that's
Is that the Frank Hogg Flex, or is that from Spectral, or which one?
Technical System.
Oh, TSC. Okay.
Consultancy. Yes. Looks like there's several manuals in this binder here. I'm looking.
Hey, yeah, go further in that manual and just open it up. It looks like tech tips or something like that. Just keep going. Those aren't it. Debug package. Okay.
Really hadn't gone through a lot of this. Well, important notice: Pascal user's manual. There's a lot of stuff.
Wasn't TSC the main manufacturer of Flex? I'm trying to remember.
I think they were.
And then they licensed it to other people to port it to specific machines.
There is still something inside that case.
Oh yes, there is.
Storage unit, storage holder.
Yeah, there's more.
Oh.
And then finally, I got another book here. This appears to be a photocopied manual for a C compiler.
Yeah, that's the OS9 C compiler.
Yeah, so.
Ooh, somebody pirated some software.
As this gentleman is unpacking this tote, he pulls this out, and I couldn't open my wallet fast enough.
An original gray multi-pack.
What is this?
And I can get you the upgraded PAL chip for it.
263024. So
And
I don't
that's a
have
low
a
serial number.
Oh, is it? What's the serial number?
3008 or something?
Yeah, that's a low serial number.
Oh.
Hey, it's missing a foot.
I don't know how many multi-packs were made, though, so I don't know if that's really low or not.
How does the upgraded PAL chip affect operation with a CoCo 1 or CoCo 2?
It doesn't do anything for the CoCo 1 and 2.
There's one program, Ron mentioned it recently, that doesn't work right.
On the CoCo 1 and 2?
Yeah.
Okay, I wasn't aware of that. I know it screws up with the gimme and some of the I/O mapping with the CoCo 3, which is why you're supposed to upgrade.
The CoCo Max controller doesn't work in it.
Jason, just do yourself one favor. Before you plug it in, open it up and check the capacitors.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
Or loose things that might be.
Or plug it into Grant's computer, then you're okay.
Thanks.
I don't want to blow anything
Yeah,
up there.
plug it into an elevator.
Just jump up and down in the elevator, right?
Nothing could go wrong.
But,
Yeah, we'll be interested
look.
to see what that CoCo 1 looks like when you open it up too.
I will, because it's heavily modified.
Definitely modded, yeah.
That'll
Also
definitely
got confirmation from James Jones in the chat here that TSC was the original manufacturers of Flex, so that's the original manual from the people that created it.
Oh wow! Excellent.
Did you look at the serial number on that CoCo?
The serial number on the CoCo. I didn't look at the serial number. See here.
It obviously had the badge, the 4K.
It'll take them a moment. It's underneath the pile.
28013.
Hey, Coco Man, I will be visiting Ohio on Monday while you're at work.
I'll have this equipment transferred to a secure location.
But the bottom line is you made out like a bandit.
Grant
Most
Levy's
important question: did he include the tote?
He did. He wasn't going to initially, and I said, "How am I supposed to carry this?" But yes, he did. I did throw it in the tote.
So did you have to chip an extra $5, quote unquote, shipping and handling for the tote, or?
No, luckily, there's actually, it's not that good of a tote. There's actually a hole in it. So, but luckily, a couple fellows I know had a flea market spot just right down from there, and I said, "Oh, can I go ahead and just leave this with you guys for a while?" And then I had taken a shuttle that day, and I do not want to have to haul this all the way across the fairgrounds and then take the shuttle back. So I said, "How much to deliver it to my hotel?" And actually, we met up with them later for dinner and just got everything then, and so it was a lot of fun here. I mean, I've seen some other things, but I think all the Coco stuff's gone now. That's like a day one thing here.
Cool, but it's definitely a better haul than you had last year, I have to say.
Absolutely. I think last year I just got a couple books for Marco.
Yo, thank you very much, by the way.
How's the food there?
Glad to do it. Well, the only food I've had here is some pizza. I don't. It's a lot of the your typical fare. Your typical fare.
How was the Rex?
Oh, Rex was excellent.
Any tornadoes in the area?
No tornadoes, no severe weather. We had weather. We had some storms earlier. It made it a little muddy in the flea market yesterday, but today the conditions are great. We have. I can walk over here to the flea market here, and conditions are great. There is an asphalt aggregate laid down here in the flea market. If I flip the camera around, you can see that there's the first year they had this, it was just all mud. It was all grass, and it got very muddy very quickly. But
well, there might be a tornado at your house, and I might have to do what Curtis said and pick up a bunch of Coco equipment in the field out there beside your house.
Oh, is that how that's going to work? Essentially,
he's going to be there to catch it all.
Yeah, if I can
right in my trunk
here.
Okay, Jason, I feel really generous. I'm going to up my offer to $61. Final.
Wow.
$61.
Take it or leave it.
Is that an offer I can't refuse? Is that what that is?
Throw in free shipping. Throw in free shipping.
He cranked the profit up to 11.
I don't know with shipping. I don't think that's going to fit in a flat rate box.
Yeah, but you can keep the tote.
Oh, I can keep the tote. The tote with the crack in the hole in it. Oh, that sounds awesome. But here we are, Hamvention Flea Market. It is a horse track, as you can see the grandstands there behind me. And if I make my way down this aisle, see if.
Did you leave your trunk open there, Jason?
Yeah, you might want to check that.
My vehicle was attended. We're good.
Oh, okay.
We're
good there.
I'm just taking everything.
Because we're the ones trying to steal it, not somebody else.
Everything is in good hands. And here's a booth that I was at last year, and here we are again. We have a lot of good retro items here. Turn the camera around here. We got all these old calculators. Not to mention Atari, an Atari 7800 system here with some games.
Nice. Go back 40 years, you can make a killing selling those, even used.
Right.
Hey, Jason, on those old calculators, is any of them a Casio CM, Computer Math 100, CM 100?
Hey, I got one of those 35s right there.
Yep, TI-35, Casio, CM100, Casio. Yeah. Come on, Snake Eyes.
It was the best calculator for somebody that was programming, especially in assembly.
I don't see one.
But it have the shift operators and stuff? Steve?
Yeah, it was. I believe I had one, and I think it disappeared at one of the club meetings I was at. Somebody appropriated it.
Oh,
that's a bummer. Some adding machine.
My last CM 100 was sitting on the desk. The shelf broke, came right down on it, and I literally cried.
Oh.
That's terrific.
Yeah. No, I like the calculator so much that when I was at Datasoft, I went out and bought calculators for the whole programming staff.
So it built in hex and octal and bit shift operations and rotates and stuff, I presume?
XORs and things like that, I believe.
And you could set it to 16-bit math, 32-bit math, 8-bit math.
Oh, cool.
Oh, it was great.
So what did you do with your old calculator? Did you bury it, or did you put it out to sea, or what did you do?
I kept it for a long time trying to fix the display. I figured I could get some, and I never could.
Atari 2600s.
And by the way, when I said I went out and bought the guys the calculator, I used my own money. It wasn't the company's money.
So, Jason, I have a question for you. This being a ham related show.
Oh,
what is the ratio in the flea market of doing computer stuff or calculator stuff or other things other than ham radio related stuff? Like, is it mostly ham stuff with a couple tables of other things, or is it pretty even, or what?
I would say it's mostly ham stuff. I mean, this is one of the exceptions here with all this retro equipment. I mean, you'll have somebody that they might have radio stuff and have some of this other stuff on the table, or some newer type computer stuff. But yeah, I'd say it's probably 80% radio related. I mean, this booth here, I like this. This is where I was. I went to this one last year, and it was one of my favorites, and this is kind of the exception to the rule. I again, being very surprised to find that Coco one on a table full of everything else.
Hey, I was going to ask you, Jason, on that previous table, was that a Sega CD system?
It was.
What does he want for it?
$120.
Never mind.
Yeah. Well, there's a trackball. This is where I bought my trackball. I bought the other one. Got NES Advantage for $20 and a Light Sixer for $80.
Fedor just put in the chat there. He says, "Holy crap! Why don't we have flea markets like this in Europe?"
Yeah, it's we even have some NES games. There's an actual licensed Pac-Man. So that's and some owls.
Is that a Pikachu? No.
I think it is a Pikachu. Yeah, that's a Pikachu.
Officially sanctioned.
Oh, and there's that looks like the bargain box.
It's the box that didn't have enough table. Yep.
The box that didn't have enough table. Oh, I see an orange NES light gun in there.
I like
the box
Here's
retro stuff.
Here's a Sega light gun.
That's the one that the Dicom adapter uses. The exact model.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And Tim Linder has published specs on how to build your own adapters. So if you bought that, you actually could hook it up.
I think I have a couple of these already, but yeah, $12.
The gun.
$12.
Mm-hmm.
Just remember, those light guns don't work on LCD panels.
Absolutely. So that's what else do we have here? Oh, we have some looks like some laser tag. That's awesome. The whole box. 1986 laser tag, whole box. $40. Looks like we got a bunch of capacitors here.
Capacitors or tubes?
No.
Those solid tubes.
Some of these. Well, this says MFD, so that's a cap. That's a cap. I'm not sure. This may not be. What is this? This is. Oh no, it says 35 microfarads.
Okay, it just has an octal base though.
Just kind of strange there, and then we have a TAC1 joystick here. That's pretty cool. So,
Apple II and Atari PC could be adapted to a Coco.
Could be, and then pardon me. Let's see here. Had some old Byte magazines here, and Apple Orchard. The only, I think the only Coco thing I found over here I bought yesterday. But there's some.
Jason, there might be some interest from somebody for the Sega CD or the light gun.
Okay. What else we got here? Oh wow, what is this? This is a
telephones.
HP flexible disk drive for an HP 86. That's pretty big.
ETY, I have one of those.
You have the acoustic coupler built in?
Yeah, my mother was deaf, so that's how I would talk to her on the phone.
There it is.
An IBM Selectric typewriter, it looks like.
Yeah, that does look like an IBM Selectric. Got a bunch of a mustard yellow wall mount rotary phone.
Leave that out in the sun longer; it'll get white again.
The
60s is calling.
Yeah, the 60s is calling, and they like to reverse the charges. old Heathkit scope and some, there's a typewriter and some of that other stuff there, but
yeah, Selectric too. It looks like.
Now, didn't the Selectrics have the ball?
Yeah.
Oh,
yep.
Oh yeah, okay, it does have a ball.
There it is.
Yep. They had some of the nicest fonts too.
There were some magazine articles on how you can convert those to a printer.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, a guy I worked for had a Selectric typewriter with this box you put over the keyboard, and you attached it to the parallel port of your computer, and you could turn the Selectric into a daisy wheel.
There are actually that interface was pretty common. If you had what was it, $400?
Yeah, this would put a parallel port on it. It was in Radio Electronics magazine, I think it was.
I actually had a cool IBM Selectric that I lost in a house fire. It had a console, and it had what looked like punch card shapes, but they were magnetic strips, and you could type and store on it and then play it back. And it actually literally had like a printer cable running to it.
What does he want for that keyboard?
$100.
That's what those mechanical keyboards go for.
Yeah, $100 for that.
A Mac back there. Our Mac.
What'd you see?
On the other table, there was a tower-based Mac.
Oh, Jason,
is that what that
why
is?
don't you hit us up with a few more items, and then what we're going to do is look at doing the break.
Sounds great. Okay, yeah, this Power PC Mac we have here, I remember some of those.
Yep.
And I'm thinking that's
Is that a Telstar down on the right there, or something? On game.
This is a Sony 3-channel mixer.
Oh, okay. Couldn't tell.
Is that
from
what
the
you're looking
distance
at?
here. Yeah.
Yeah.
I just saw the paddles.
Yeah,
so.
I could see where you would think that might have been a Pong machine, but that's. I think that's all I really have, and I'll check the messages here in a minute if there's a message for me or something. And
hello, I'm David Ladd. Thank you for watching.
Sorry, wrong button.
Thank you, Jason.
Button.
That was good.
Well, that's it. Yeah. So, my pleasure, and reporting from Hamvention 2019.
That was interesting. Thank you.
Well, okay. Are we ready to take a quick break?
Why don't we go ahead and do a quick commercial break, and then when we come back, we're going to get into our discussions. I know, Curtis, you've got at least one good one that maybe we'll lead off with that.
Okay. I'm sure some other members of the panel join in that too. So, but a commercial first.
Hi there, this is Mark Overholzer, and you're watching CoCoTALK, the world's leading weekly talk show where you can join in. Hey, come watch us and see what's happening in the world of Cocoa.
CoCoTALK is brought to you in part by Placeblex Dietary Supplement. Placeblex, we think it works, so will you.
What's going on, everybody? CoCoTALK, and I want to say thank you for continuing to watch and listen to CoCoTALK. We love doing this show. We think we put together a pretty good show for you, but this show could be better with your help. So if you would like to send a feedback, a comment, a suggestion, a show topic, or maybe even your own little segment or bumper, then send it to us via email to cocotalk@cocotalk.live. This show would be nothing without you. Love to hear from you.
CoCoTALK, c'est le coq champignon, des micros et dans le pion. Pour le jeu, il est pas batable, les études, c'est pas bizarre. L'expansion, il a ça, les commandes, tu vas voir ça. Notre Coco est contrôlable, pour tes cours, c'est bien serviable. Coco 2 de Radio Chaton, la belle est dans le sac.
Un ordinateur couleur qui a de la personnalité. Le Coco 2 de Radio Shack. On solde pour Noël à partir de 149,95.
Coco 2 de Radio Chaton, la belle est dans le sac, c'est toi et Coco 2.
We now return you to CoCoTALK.
And we're back.
And I'll tell you, the commercials, that Radio Shack, once I just can't get away from my own software, that damn Megabug.
I was waiting for Jerry Bruce to show up.
Follows you everywhere.
Yep. Now, Curtis, you had an interesting discussion that would probably be good to lead off with.
Yeah, it might strike a little bit of controversy because it kind of got kicked up from stuff that happened on Facebook concerning the release of Nightlore. But I want to make this a more general discussion on the topic, not just about Nightlore itself. And that is about the fact about doing ports or transcodes, etc., and then get into the morality legalities of doing it. I mean, this is something that's been affecting the software industry for decades. I mean, you guys might remember the old timers, especially like Odyssey got sued by Namco for making a Pac-Man clone that they eventually had to change and rename KC Munchkin to get around some copyrights. And in the case of Nightlore here, we've got a port from a different system completely, and just kudos for doing the port. That's not an easy thing, doing a transcode of something of that magnitude. And we've had transcodes like Donkey Kong and Pac-Man as well recently. I guess the controversies kind of come up a little bit is because it's being sold, and most of the transcode ports have usually been done as free. I think mainly to help alleviate people from getting legal cease and desist notices from companies. And I believe, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Steve, I believe Nightlore is actually currently owned by Microsoft. They bought the rights a few years back.
I'm not sure. I would have to do research on that.
Okay, I remember somebody had mentioned that technically the rights are not abandoned. It's not like a company that shut down and no longer exists. And that also gets into the legality of abandonware, which I wouldn't mind touching on a little bit too. But I mean, to get into stuff about copyrights and cease and desist, and we just saw this in the Commodore world because there was this nice, well done port of Mario done to the Commodore 64 recently that was released for free publicly, and then Nintendo came right down on it within days and take that sucker down type thing. So I don't think that's going to happen in this case. I think we have the advantage of the CoCo market being small enough that we can kind of slide under the radar. So I don't think it'll be an issue with Nightlore, and it's an excellent game. I watched it at the fest. I guess the controversy though is if you're porting somebody else's code or doing an exact clone of it, should you be trying to legally sell it per se? Now, obviously in this case they're selling it as a cart, so there is physical costs involved of the case and the ROMs and the boards and assembly and all this stuff, plus manuals and everything else. So I mean, they would want to recoup some costs, but there's a potential of being some legal problems if somebody that holds the current copyright decided to come after them. So is this something that should be encouraged, that we just tell people try to release this as a free download type thing to try to avoid that? Or should we be avoiding that entirely? Because I mean, in the case of the Commodore Mario thing, that did not help doing it for free. Nintendo still came down hard and said, just shut her down. I don't want to see this. Well, and then to get into the moral side of it, Nintendo would never have ported this to the C64. The people that did Nightlore would never have ported this to the CoCo. So are they losing sales? Now, legality-wise, that's a totally separate story. And that's one problem, I think, with doing abandonware and porting and transcoding and stuff, is that what feels morally right to somebody as a reason to do it or how to go about doing it doesn't necessarily match up with what the legal is. And then we get into complications of legalities between different countries, because, I mean, the United States has different copyright laws than Australia, has different copyright laws in Canada than Europe. China, I mean, part of the big trade war is over IP issues, intellectual property, because basically China, unless you register and pay for registration in China within 1 year of registering it somewhere else, it isn't applicable. You can never file it after that. In China, according to their laws, can do whatever they want with your stuff. So I mean, there's a lot of legal complications. And Steve, I know you've actually gone through some of this stuff for enforcing copyrights, etc. So you probably have a lot more of a better legal background on the legal side of things. And I'd also be interested to hear your thoughts on the morality of some of the stuff. Like, I mean, my personal opinion, copyright law needs to change, especially when it comes to computer software. I mean, for literary works like books and music and stuff, I can see it being a bit longer. But for computer software, because it's such a fast moving industry, and a computer that you wrote code for 30 years ago doesn't even exist anymore. So you're not losing anything. Like, maybe that should be after a much shorter period of time, it becomes public domain or freeware, unless maybe you pay for re-registering it every year or something like that. What are your thoughts, Steve?
Let's hit that first one right there, because you're saying 30 years ago. How old is Mario?
The first Mario was what, 85?
Nintendo.
Yeah, so we're talking that age. And Nintendo.
Okay, 40.
Yeah, so Nintendo still enforces their intellectual property on Mario. And rightfully so. They should, because in addition to the fact that they have their current stock of video systems like the Switch, they put Mario on it, and it is part of their intellectual property. Now, if you can go play Mario on platforms that they don't put it on, that dilutes their market, because part of the idea of their system is not only do you buy their software, their game, but you also buy their hardware.
Exclusiveness.
So this is one element where Nintendo will fight to keep, the game pure. The other thing too is this is a case that goes back, it was the 60s. Disney used to not really enforce their copyright very much. Matter of fact, they would let people paint Mickey Mouse on the side of a school building. Matter of fact, sometimes if it was convenient enough, Disney would actually send artists out to paint Mickey Mouse on the side of the school that wanted to do it. But then this company decided to come out with these posters of Mickey and Minnie doing the deed, and Donald smoking some stuff, and basically taking Disney's intellectual property, making money off of it. But it wasn't so much the fact they're making money, it was the fact that these scenes were not Disney friendly, and they wanted to shut them down because it was ruining their market. It was tainting their characters. You see these posters, and now you don't see Mickey Mouse being the happy character he is. Instead, he's off humping Minnie Mouse. So they really had to clamp down on it. And ever since then, Disney has clamped down in fear of this happening again, where somebody takes their intellectual property and muddies it.
Now, Disney's actually an excellent choice example for this too, because Disney has actually been one of the main people lobbying in Congress that has actually gotten the copyright laws extended further and further as the years have gone by. It used to be a lot less. I think the current law in the States is lifetime plus 70 years of the author.
And then if it's corporate, it's a minimum of, I think, 125 years, and that may be extended.
Yeah, it's 125 now.
Yeah. But see, that's the thing, is the company came up with the intellectual property. Now, on the other side of the coin, they sit there and say, well, Snow White, that was a public domain character, and nobody can use it. No, you can use Snow White. You just can't take the imagery that Disney created and use it for your own profit like that.
Unless they gave you permission, yeah.
Yeah, look at Snow White and the Huntsman. That has absolutely nothing to do with what Disney created with Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. And, it's another retelling of the story. So you can sit there and tell your own version of Snow White. It's just that you can't sit there and use the imagery of Dopey for your own purposes, the way that Disney did Dopey. After all, Disney was the one that named the dwarfs when he came up with the movie. So that's I've heard the argument before about nobody can do Snow White. Yes, you can do Snow White.
Yeah, because that was basically in public domain before Disney ever did a movie of it. Now, something like Mickey Mouse, on the other hand, which he originally came out when, was it 28 or something?
Yeah, 28, 29.
Yeah, and then basically the original copyright would have expired years ago on him being a trademark character, but they actually lobbied Congress to extend the law, and they've done this a couple times now, and that's where I'm kind of getting a little bit frustrated with people with money being able to get these extensions. I think they've milked the character enough at this point, but that's my personal opinion.
Well, the thing is, if it's not a question of whether they milk the character or not. You can always come up with your own characters and do your own original work and like that. And what I don't like is when people sit there and say, oh, gee, you've earned enough money off your particular video game, you don't have the rights to control your property. And that's like saying Disney doesn't have the right to control its creative property at work. Yeah, true, the original fairy tales were in public domain at once, and they still are. It's just that what they've done is they've created their own thing. and you are more than welcome to create your own thing based on what is in public domain.
Well, the other problem with extending copyrights like Disney has done is other works have now been extended automatically. And many of these works are now in limbo because they're not sure if they can find the original copyright holders. And so it can actually stifle some kind of or stifle some of the creativity, or marketing of other products. The other thing I wanted to touch base on, one of the arguments was when selling some of these products, saying, well, I'm only making, recouping the cost of making or creating, the products like the cartridges, stuff like that. Well, I mean, I could turn around and say, well, I could manufacture DVDs and Blu-rays with Star Wars on it, and say, well, I'm only recouping the cost of just, the time that I'm taking to create it and all the materials. That doesn't. That's not really a good argument, especially in a legal point of view, because when people do get sued, they're not suing of actual damages. They're looking at, well, this is lost potential sales that they'll go after, and that's why they're able to recoup millions of dollars, because it's also punitive that they get as well.
Right. It's very expensive to bring a lawsuit. Oh, I do know that one's so true. And no, I've had to sue a number of people who have taken my copyright material and they felt there's no need to compensate me for my work. And this is stuff that I produced and was only copyrighted 2 years earlier. But they supposedly, well, it runs on this system and that system is, Creative Commons, but your software can't be Creative Commons. And it gets messy. And the government is trying to go through and take care of issues of orphanware and, what the rights are and like that. But still, part of the whole situation is, does the creator of that material have the right to make profit off their intellectual property? Now, in the case of
if they do, how long do they get that right? I mean, that's like some of the patents with drug companies is an example, which actually affects public health.
Exactly.
Where you can't do generics up until a certain amount of time, but
Well, that's the thing is, I also own a number of patents too, and those patents have all expired, and that's what you go in with it. Now, true, when a lot of my copyrights, when they came in, they were much younger, but still none of them have expired based on the old copyright when I created it. They've been extended, but they're still there. And I guess maybe another reason why I'm so sometimes get upset at how people treat copyrights is because I'm on the side of the coin that has lost so much money because of one violation of a particular software program, that a copyright, a order that would have gotten me $250,000 was canceled because the game was pirated.
See,
I could use that money today. $250,000.
People have unwarranted expectation. I don't know the right word to use. They just think that software programmers become millionaires from the games, and they don't realize how little the programmers actually get paid, and most of the profits remain with the publisher, who also has expenses such as advertising and customer support and
processing credit card transactions, all kinds of things. Yeah.
Oh, sure.
I mean, there's a lawsuit against Apple right now that's actually the Supreme Court has approved to go to full Supreme Court trial over the App Store, and the fact that because they have a monopoly, and I mean they're not making much money. Most of the apps are free with advertising or 99 cents. So and then Apple takes a 30% cut on that.
Well, let's bring it back to the main part of your question also, especially in regards to the software. We're talking about a translation. Technically, the code that's in the game is not the same copyrighted code.
Yeah, it's completely different, actually.
It's a translation of the copyrighted code.
Yeah, it's algorithmically the same, but it's on a different CPU with different video hardware and everything else. So like none of the code is common. And that's I don't know the legality of that. Do you, Steve? You know what the legality of that kind of thing is?
Well, this is something that was brought up in one of the legal classes I was in. Is the translation from a work that was copyright in English, is it still copyright when it goes to French?
Well, from my brief reading of some copyright law earlier this morning, it sounds like it depends on the country you're in. Like Germany actually did in 1979, they had a ruling that basically said that computer software is not, I can't remember the word, it's not scientific something or other, and it's not artistic, so it's not copyrightable. And basically they have no copyright for software.
Mm-hmm.
So if in Germany, it's a free-for-all.
Yeah.
See, a lot of these issues were determined way back when people were pirating IBM BIOS. And what they would do is make slight changes to the BIOS. And when it went to court, the judges, not being experts on computer programming, said unless it's a byte for byte exactly the same, then IBM has no case. And all these people had to do were make minor changes to the code here and there, and it wouldn't pass that test.
That's not necessarily true.
No, that's not true.
No. If we look at the case of the first real BIOS for a PC compatible computer, they did a white room translation. You had a group of people that studied the ROM and figured out every nuance of what it did. They worked up a spec sheet without showing any code whatsoever of what the different calls did in the ROM. And then you had another group that actually coded to that spec sheet. So there was a physical break between the people that knew the ROM and saw the ROM and understood the ROM.
But that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the Taiwanese companies that would just sell you IBM BIOS, the actual IBM BIOS, and they just make minor changes to the code, like change strings in the code so that it didn't say IBM, it said, whatever 3-letter Taiwanese company.
Every case I saw in that, the case went towards the owner of it. There was a case where
they actually lost those cases.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because you also had a case back in the 90s with ARC, if you remember the archive ARC along with PKZip. What PKZip did was basically do exactly that. They just changed some of the coding of ARC, and they lost that case.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, PKARC lost. That was Phil Katz.
Yep.
He made a faster version of ARC than System Enhancement Associates C that did the original ARC.
Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, and many times even AT&T sued BSD for the same thing because they said, hey, you're using some of our code in BSD. So and again, they had to change all that code. So yeah, that's not correct.
All right.
Yeah, getting back on the thing I was talking about where you had the clean room translation, that was to avoid a lot of the legal issues as far as some of the patents and definitely the copyrights that were in the IBM BIOS, and keep it from them getting sued. This gets more in line with what we're talking about, where the person has now done a instruction by instruction translation of the game.
Well, yeah, there's and it's now open source. Someone was re-implementing the Mac OS toolbox,
mm-hmm.
And he was re-implementing it originally for the Next station, and then that got ported to Linux and Windows and DOS, and that's called Executor. If you look at that movie, not Pirates of Silicon Valley, there was the other one. There were two.
Holding Catch Fire.
No, that was a TV show. I'm talking about a movie. The guy's name is Cliff Matthews that used to own the company ARDI, and I bought the one, like the 0.9 version of it, the pre-release version, because it was in Byte magazine as a big thing, and he was gonna eventually get it so that you could load Mac OS right on top of his toolbox ROM, but he abandoned the project at one point. Someone has recently picked it up. But of course, it's not really much use because no one's running 68K max anymore. You know, when you're talking about transcoding, what about back in the Coco days? A lot of companies reproduced famous software titles like Sailorman. There were several clones of Zaxxon.
Okay, let me take over from here. Okay, in the case of porting a game from one platform or another, most of them were done not as transcoding. They were done simply by looking at the game as a spec and then writing the game. It's totally different than transcoding.
Right.
Transcoding, you don't know exactly the flow of the game, but what you're doing is instruction by instruction. You're translating what's going on, what the CPU is doing to get that going on. Or in the case of these ports, you are looking at what was done. A good example was when I did One-on-One, the basketball game. I never saw the source code until 2 weeks before I delivered the product. I looked at the game, watched how it played. I created my own specs for how well the player, you know, Larry Bird and the other guy played.
Jules Erving.
Yeah.
Jules.
You know, I went through and I was almost perfect. And what was different between our two games is the information about how the players played was based on 2 years later from what the original game was. But other than that, they were identical just because I used the game as the original spec and ported. Never saw the source code. Now, in the case of Arkanoid, I was able to get a little bit of the source code, but the main thing is I got all the maps. So it was easy to make sure I had the maps right because I had the source to the maps. You know, so all the backgrounds, you know, the patterns and like that.
Now, Steve, in this case here, you were doing official ports, though.
Yes.
It's something like Donkey King, which actually Tom Mix did get contacted, and that's when they changed it to the King because it was just too similar. But when you're getting gameplay that's almost identical to the arcade, whether it's clean room or not, there has been cases in the past where people have been sued and have lost. Casey Munchkin, like I mentioned before, is one of them. So well, where do you get different enough that you're legally in the clear?
One of the things that comes up in court of law is intent. Is your intent to create an original concept, or is your intent to create something that, while similar, is more inspired by and not necessarily a direct copy? Casey Munchkin, they knew they had to do a bunch of changes, and they did. It wasn't just, you know, true, they did have to change the name because it was too similar. But a lot of the game didn't change because the guy improved upon the concept. Now, a thing going through the maze and eating dots is generic, and you really cannot control that. But look at Megabug. Megabug goes through a maze and eats dots. And the original game, I'm not sure that the timeline, if it was that close to Megabug, I mean Pac-Man, but I do know there was dot eating maze games that came out before Pac-Man.
Yeah, there was a car racing one, Demolition, I can't remember what it's called. It was a little quad thing.
Rally X.
Yeah, Rally X, right. Yeah, because that predated Pac-Man, and that ate dots too. Now we have a question from the chat here from Alan Huffman, and I will expand on it a bit. He said to ask you about Z89, and I'll expand this to Nick Marentes because he did a Pac-Man tribute that was clean room driven, but he's using like the actual music from the arcade game, and the shapes are pretty well identical. The maze is identical. Where do you think these would fall?
Oh, without a doubt, Z89 is not kosher.
Okay, that wasn't the answer I was expecting, but
no.
I mean, you did add comets in the space sequence, so. Or meteors or whatever it was, yeah. I mean, you did some slight variations.
But I was trying to do the game. And actually, Z89 was done as a promise that, you know, I could finally make a Zaxxon on the Coco 3 that was closer to the arcade than that Coco 1-2 version Zaxxon I did so many years ago. And, you know, just to kind of prove, yeah, this is what we're capable of do with this improved hardware. And that's really why that one came out. I was hoping I would never get sued. By that time, Sega was definitely let's just say they weren't as big as they were 4 or 5 years ago. And I was hoping I could fly under the wire.
Yeah, and I think, as I mentioned before, the smaller Coco market, I think, actually helps us. We get to do a lot of these things, I think, a bit under the radar compared to everybody else. Now, Nick Marantes, I was going to bring in your Pac-Man, because you did a clean room implementation that was considered the closest clone pretty well in the 8-bits too. And now since then, we've had Glenn Hewlett do an actual transcode of Pac-Man. So I was wondering what your opinions, and Steve, you can jump in there too, as far as the copyright part goes between those two, because they were very close to the arcade.
Yeah, well, I've written 16 commercial level games between the TRS-80 Model 1 and the Color Computer, of which only 2 of those were essentially copies from some other work. There was Space Intruders, which was the Space Invaders, which I changed a fair bit, improved the graphics, and even added an entire extra level. So that was sort of...
Yeah, that one I think is more of a, like Steve mentioned, an inspired work, because you took elements from Phoenix and Space Intruders or Space Invaders, and then you did 16 color graphics versus the black and white. So I think there's enough changes to qualify that.
That one's got enough changes. Pac-Man was a direct copy, mainly because I tried that because people tend to like games that they're familiar with, and I thought Pac-Man's a good one, so I did Pac-Man. And of course, when you do a clone game as such, it gets judged on how close it is to the original. Even if you put new ideas in that make it better, people will say, oh, it doesn't have that level, or the graphics here is different. Straight away, that's a negative. So my intent when I was doing Pac-Man, of course, was, well, just make it as close as I can, because then people can't complain. But I never did base it on the original code either. I basically looked at the as Steve was saying, it was the template, or whatever the word was he used. All the code is 100% mine. I had to nut out all the ghost intelligence. So my point is that a lot of the work there is my own work. It's just based on another known game. I guess when you're dealing with transcodes, then you can't really ever say that game that I'm transcoding is really mine. It's someone else's game. It's someone else's code. It's someone else's logic. All you're doing is the mechanical act of converting from one CPU to another and making it work on different hardware. But you never really can say that you own the game. You don't actually code. None of that code really, the game logic, is yours. So for me to do something like a transcode, that's fine, that's challenging, but I could never actually sell it. To me, it would be unethical to actually put a price and rake a profit in based on someone else's work and someone else's code completely. So that's my side of things. I've never really been a fan of doing these sort of ports of existing programs. That was just Pac-Man and Space Invaders were just 2 that I did because, well, everyone else was doing it. So, but most of my software has actually been original games, and they're the ones I'm more proud of because they are my games. It's my code and my idea. So I do that, and I prefer doing that. Even my latest Popstar Pilot, that's my own idea and all my own code. And Gunstar that I'm doing now, although it's it's a typical vertical shoot 'em up, which isn't it's not new but the game itself, all of it, the code and how I build it is my own code. So it's for me ethically I can sell that. But yeah, Pac-Man is the one that's probably the most unethical one that I've written, but.
Well,
it's certainly a transcode.
Your new game, Nick, is part of a genre. It's not.
Well, it's a genre. Yeah, it's not really a copy of anyone's game. No.
Yeah, it's got different graphics and background tiles, etc.
That's right. No, I don't even know where the game's going to go. I sort of start it. I know the genre, so I say, okay, I need a spaceship. Oh yeah, that looks good, and I need aliens, and oh yeah, they look good. And I'm sort of working it out as I go. It's not based on any idea, except it's a vertical shoot 'em up genre. So yeah, I guess it's the creative side of programming games that I'm more interested in.
Yeah, and I want to bring up one other specific example that has had both creative and transcode elements to it, and that's John Kowalski, Sockmaster, who did the original Donkey Kong transcode, the first transcode we had, where he duplicated the original arcade game. But then a few years later, he came out with Donkey Kong Remix, where he did remix the whole mazes and everything else. He added some new elements, trampolines, and things like that. So now it's kind of an inspired game. I mean, technically, I think he could have sold Donkey Kong Remix, because I think it's different enough. I mean, it's based on the same core, emulating the sprites and stuff, but he did redo the gameplay quite a bit from the original. And I'm wondering what Stephen Nick's
like a mashup.
Yeah, I'm wondering what Stephen Nick's opinions on Donkey Kong versus Donkey Kong Remix. Could that have been a commercial sold product? I know John himself didn't want to take the risk of it, but
yeah,
what are your feelings on that?
It's kind of the fact he's using the same graphics is the big issue there, because the graphics itself can be copyrighted separately than the code. So he's done some original code there, and if he did different graphics to that, then he could, to my judgment, and everybody's going to judge us differently, and courts may judge it differently, and you want to respect what they do, and so that's kind of the thing. And I'm going to kind of, the odd thing is, I haven't really done the original stuff these guys have, but the games I've tried to do, though I've used the gameplay ideas, I've tried to change them and improve on them. And yeah, I wish I was as creative as Steve and Nick and original game ideas like they've done. Yes, I did. Unfortunately, I haven't been. And so, that puts me in my book a notch below their skill level and just creativity, because I have used the other ideas. But I've tried to make them unique and a bit different. I've never tried to do an exact clone copy. And so, Sockmaster's work is fantastic. And, my judgment would be the code behind it, he's probably legal on. The fact that he's still using the Donkey Kong graphics was where we'd be having the issue.
Alan Huffman noted in the chat, and I was just about to mention, that that Remix is being sold on arcade boards that people have mounted into cabinets.
My understanding is he's not selling the boards. He's selling a ROM supplement set. You have to have the original Donkey Kong board, which has the original sprite hardware and everything else on it, and you just add these ROMs. So he's not selling a whole board.
Right. Okay.
I could also give you other examples, just part of the discussion, like in Star Wars and Star Trek. There are a lot of fan edit movies or even short stories. Like in Star Wars, you have Pink 5, and they have actually used, the Star Wars story and everything else. They were professionally produced. And Star Trek had the Next Mission, which they used Captain Kirk, Spock, and it was a whole series. Both of these were given the blessing from the copyright holders to do these movies and such.
No.
Not in the case of Star Trek. Star Trek, they locked it down.
They
was,
stopped doing it. But
I did two of the Star Trek fan films, and what was happening was the copyright holder, CBS/Paramount, was just looking the other way. As long as the production didn't make any money and didn't try to sell merchandise,
they
were going to look the other way.
But they did change their mind afterwards.
And they changed their mind. But the other one that they went after is in Star Wars. They did the original. They redid all the movies back to the theatrical releases, and of course they're trying to get that shut down, even though it's still on the internet. But they keep aggressive.
Yeah, but Lucasfilm now has, and CBS now both have guidelines for making fan films, so that you can now legally make a fan film, but there are restrictions on what characters you can use, how long the movie is, how much money you can raise to make it,
and how you portray them as well.
Yeah, because what happened in the Star Trek, I'm not going to mention names, but there was one producer who raised $1.5 million to make a fan film that everyone was really looking forward to, and then it turned out he mishandled the funds. He paid himself a salary, paid his girlfriend a salary, rented cars, flew to conventions.
Okay, Al. Let's stay
All right,
on the subject of Coco stuff and where that pertains in there. We're drifting off the main subject. Anyways, also Richard, may want to check the position of your microphone. You're pretty quiet.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Slightly better.
Okay, sorry about that.
Anyways, but getting back to the subject about translation and like that, and whether or not you could get sued or get a takedown notice. A lot of it has to do with the power and money behind who owns it too. I have to admit, when it comes to me doing takedown notices and stuff like that, I've got to protect what's going on, but I got limited resources to do it. Companies like Nintendo, Disney, and like that have huge amounts of resources and good reasons to protect their intellectual property. In the case of the one game that we're talking about here, it could be somebody that's got some strong interest in protecting their copyrights and intellectual property. But the thing is, we're also looking at a small market. We're not talking ethics here. We're talking about, financial rewards, and it's worth to do something like that. So the translation of this project on the Coco, given away, most likely, I don't see them getting into trouble. Them selling it, they're muddying the water a little bit, but the thing is, I think we're talking about a small little stream, not something like the mighty Mississippi, as far as trying to go up the stream.
I think it also depends on whether the franchise that you're doing a transcode, et cetera, of or port or whatever is, if it's an active franchise, like Donkey Kong, obviously still active, Mario still active. That's why they're enforcing their copyright so heavily. Knight's Lore, as far as I know, is not an active franchise, still making new stuff based on that property. So that, I think that makes a big difference. Is it worth them trying to sue when they're not doing anything with it right now? I mean, if they change their minds and decide to come up with a movie of Knight's Lore, well, then maybe they will. But I think at this point, it's not a big concern.
For me these days, I have to be very careful about what I do. First of all, I'm married to a lawyer, and boy, I get a lot of consultation out of it. The second thing is, I like my house. I don't want to lose it. So I try to be careful. But
another thing about a market as small as the Coco, where we're talking hundreds, maybe in the low thousands, versus the millions of a Nintendo game, the game machine.
Yeah, I kind of mentioned that earlier.
Yeah, but you didn't say this. People tend to own the same game on multiple platforms. So I have a Coco, and I've downloaded Donkey Kong, but I also have the Nintendo game, and I have the Donkey Kong cartridge for it. I have, I have an Atari 2600 and an 800, and I have cartridges for those, and those tend to be the same games. Like I have Project Nebula on the Coco, and then on the Atari 800, I have Star Raiders. I tend to own the same game on multiple platforms. So buying the Coco version of the game is only for fun. It doesn't actually mean I don't buy the game on other licensed platforms.
Sometimes that's an unusual case.
Once again, because the Coco is a small market, I think, in this particular
That's what I'm saying, is that it's such a small
And that's
market.
the reason Nintendo set down so hard on the Mario clone on the C64, because C64, even though it's a retro platform, is a huge platform.
Millions of C64s.
And they were giving away for free. I mean, they were not making money on it, so that wasn't part of the issue in that case. But they came down, like I said, within days, and it's they've been trying to take it down ever since.
And on the C64 market, there are new clone computers being made. That C64 Mini, and now they're going to do a full-blown, they're going to blow the Mini up to the full size with a real keyboard. So, there's a chance that if Nintendo didn't crack down on the Super Mario Brothers clone, the transcode or whatever it is, that they would lose significant sales to a new C64 platform.
Now, there's a few people on the panel we haven't heard from, so let's give them a chance to get in and join and make their comments in regards to this discussion.
Also, from some people in the chat room too have been kind of chiming in too. We should maybe get a few of theirs too. There's some talk of you know, like Megabug's a fairly original because it's a dot-based game, but it's quite different in gameplay. I was trying to remember 60 had a comment. I'm wondering if any of the other guys on the panel want to talk about it. In the meantime, I'll try to have a comment.
If there's nobody who wants to comment,
Well,
I have a few more things I can say, but
I made a comment. I made a comment in the chat on the Facebook about this, about transcoding. Like if I took, I equated it to music. If I took a WAV file, and say there were no automated tools, and I painstakingly transcoded from WAV to MP3, it's still the data is completely different, the file is completely different, but the net result is it's the original song.
That's somewhat true, yeah. So it's just a different format, right?
It's a different format. So the net result, though, is that you play this different file through a different piece of software, you get the original experience.
Now I think that's where Steve was getting into, you know, doing an inspired by game versus an exact, as close as a clone as you can possibly make it.
And this whole thing also came to a head with the emulation scene, because companies are defending the copyrights for 30-year-old games just in case they want to release retro packs in the future or whatever, which has happened.
Yeah, or create new versions of the characters, and they want to still keep the copyright on the characters themselves, even if they've been updated and changed.
So Nintendo yanked all their ROMs off all emulation sites and that sort of thing for similar reasons. Well, you can still find them, but it made it so that the casual user is more difficult to find them.
Well, that's the thing. That is a copyright material. It's active. Nintendo, I mean, even on the Wii, they came out with Excitabytes, which was an old game. So, you know, there's a potential for them to make money off of it. They're protecting their stuff. And you got to remember, companies have a responsibility to their stockholders to make the most profit and do things to make the most profit for the stockholders. If they don't, they can get brought up before judges and have certain nasty things done, like thrown in jail. So it's important for these companies to do the best they can to make money and protect how they make money. And it's intellectual property, they got to protect it.
Yeah, I got a good comment here from Joe Burnett in the chat room too. He says, "I think the resurgence in the interest in old retro games has made many companies rethink enforcing their intellectual property right now, such as all the all-in-one retro consoles being sold by QVC and Walmart that Al had mentioned, like the C64 one." And I think that is true. I think some people kind of thought, no, it's dead. That was stuff we did 30 years ago. It's not going to sell again because everybody's using, you know, modern 3D engines. But the nostalgia has actually gotten, you know, people to be able to bulk manufacture some clones of these older 8-bit systems back in the day, and they're proving to be hugely popular. They're selling out.
Well, look at the
so now all of a sudden it is important that they start enforcing their copyright so they can make the money off the stuff they created the 30 years ago that these people are now playing on these new platforms, cloning the old ones.
Well, look at NES Classic. It was supposed to be a limited run, one-time run, and people bought them up, sold them on eBay for $500, and now Nintendo ended up creating multiple runs of, and I think you can still buy it today. And that was not the original plan.
But there are clones of the NES Classic. I think John is holding several of them up.
Yeah. Anyways, another example of trying to protect your intellectual property, because you never know what's going to happen in the future. Look at Prince of Persia. That's a crowning example of a game that came out at the beginning of the computer systems. It had a few releases of games that showed up on different platforms, and then went stagnant for a while. Then when a more modern game system with better graphics came out, they came up with much more elaborate Prince of Persias, and eventually became a movie. Let's remember, taking a video game into a movie, you start talking about making some real money. So if somebody would sit there and said you only have the rights to the intellectual property for 10 years, the people that created Prince of Persia, the guy that created Prince of Persia, never got his royalty checks for the movie.
Yep.
But Steve, do you agree that the current copyright extension of lifetime of the original author plus 90 years, isn't that a bit excessive?
No, because I have heirs. They have, I earned money 100 years ago. my heirs earned money 100 years ago. Do I have the right not to inherit that money from them? It's the
no, to me that's a different thing though, because you can inherit money that you've earned off of the stuff that you did, but those people have done nothing creative to make this product. They're just basically just raking in residuals, right?
Well, just think about this. Intellectual properties are that. They're properties, and money is properties, and real estate is properties. The folks that are the heirs to Bob Hope, they're going to be making money for generations off the land that Bob Hope took all of his earnings from his movies and stuck into land. He owned a lot of land in California. But that's just my feeling in regards to intellectual property. It is just as much as real estate, as cash, as these other things.
Yeah, and see, that's where I differ a bit from you there. To me, intellectual property is like ideas and concepts. It's not physical goods like a patch of land or somebody's old car collection or something. So to me, I view those differently. I think there should be, definitely an amount of time, but I do think that the plus 90, I mean, it's plus 70 here in Canada, for example.
Yeah, what can I say? It's intellectual property.
Yeah, but that intellect died when the original author died. Those other people do not have the intellect to do that property on their own.
Example can I hear is you take an author who's written a book, okay? Now he dies. Somebody takes that book, and as they say, they modify this. And they take a wholesome character and make it into a porn character using kind of the idea that Steve was talking about, what they were doing to Mickey Mouse and Minnie and such. Okay? You need a right to protect your reputation, the reputation of your forefathers, because that gives you there. So once it becomes covered by copyright, the law's not making the decision between the software, whether what type of the intellectual property it is. Okay? And so I'm going to side with Steve right now. Should there be a distinction made? I don't know. Okay? But you have to be able to protect those people with that intellectual property, because it can come back and disgrace the heirs. Okay?
Well, in that case, then should this not be infinite? Should, once you've established a copyright, skip the not plus 90 years plus lifetime? If your heirs are going to be constantly, keeping the reputation, maybe it should be ad infinitum. Somebody created something in the Middle Ages. Chaucer's Tales should not be copyrighted, and the Chaucer family should always get it. I think that's excessive. Well, I guess the thing is, what should the limit be? Go ahead.
Well, the current limit is 90 years.
Yeah.
Plus a lifetime. Even if I created when I was 20, I lived to 90, it's another 90 past that. Now we're talking 160 years.
Well, let's let Alan Hoffman in.
Yeah, go ahead, Alan. Sorry.
Yeah. So here's the thing that muddles the water with all of this. If I have a family business and I create something and it stays in my family, I think we should be able to have it as long as possible. But as soon as it's owned by a corporation, which isn't anyone, it's just whoever is on the CEO and the board, and it comes and it goes, and nobody has any connection or whatever, that's when it seems a little strange. But I see, if I create a character and I make a statue, and I own this statue, this is a physical thing. You cannot make replicas of it because it's a physical thing. And Curtis, would that be agreeable?
Yes.
Okay. And then you decide to make a drawing of that physical thing. Have you violated my ownership of this design?
If I draw the Eiffel Tower and there's a copyright in the Eiffel Tower, if I violated the copyright, now I owe them money for it.
Exactly. So if we're talking about a book, and I would say it should be infinite as long as it's being passed down like any other good. I will the creation of Mickey Mouse to my son. But once companies take over that outlive everybody, and people that had nothing to do with anything have just bought it, that seems strange. But at the same time, we have to allow that, or you can't sell anything you make to a business.
That's actually, that leads into patent trolls, right? Because that's what they do. They just buy property from people that can't afford or don't want to enforce it. And all they do is they sue people, and they don't actually make anything.
So it gets real muddy when you've got something that is a character or a three-dimensional figure or an actual movie, or, this whole Mickey Mouse copyright thing. There is so much active development on a daily basis based around this that it's hard to argue that it doesn't belong to the Disney company.
Yeah.
If
I'm not saying I have the answer. I'm just trying to bring up contrary points here.
Yeah.
So I say, you know, if it's in your family, yes. If you are actively developing it, yes. If you just let it waste away, that's when the limit should come in. 70 years of non-use, it's gone. Something like that. But that's not how it works.
Actually, that's something that they are looking into. Is we have one system for trademarks. If you do not actively use your trademark, you lose it after a decade. A good example of this is the term Captain Marvel.
Yeah, because Fawcett lost it.
Yep, they lost it because, well, they got sued out of existence and basically
by DC,
bought out by DC Comics. And then DC didn't do anything with it for 10 years. And then Marvel goes, ooh, let's use it. And they now own the trademark on Captain Marvel.
Which is why they have to call the DC Captain Marvel, which is based on the original Fawcett one from '39, they have to call Shazam.
Yep, exactly. So this is something that's been floated around in the copyright industry, is that you have to use your copyright. You have to be actively protecting. And what that does, it puts an end to orphanware.
Yeah, that I would agree with. And I just want to mention something else. And James Jones in the chat says the Constitution says, and quote, to secure to authors and inventors, not to the heirs of authors and inventors.
Mm-hmm.
So
I remember a few years ago when there was a lot of Dr. Seuss characters were being licensed for like swagware stuff. And the discussion was that the original copyrights were starting to run out. And so the estate of Theodore Geisel, you know, reissued new materials to preserve that.
But we really have moved away from the whole crust of about the translation. If I can just sum up some stuff from earlier. Should he profit from somebody else's work is really the bottom line here.
Well, I have,
you know, as far as doing the translation.
Yeah.
And like that. Did he create the original concept? Did he do the time to create it? Did he do the hard work? Did he take the risk? And also, when you create something, you run the legal risk. Are you violating somebody else's copyright and like that? So there's that issue. So basically, did he earn it?
Yeah.
Okay, John first.
Yeah. The other thing I want to throw in here is, say I speak a language and that there's no translation for. Okay, does somebody have a right to get paid to make that translation? And I think that's kind of gives a good comparison.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And, you know, not disagreeing, you know, and this is really a gray area, you know, as far as ethics and stuff. And, you know, it's something that though I don't do transcode, you know, I have a game that I'm wanting to write, and I want to do it because, hey, I want to actually see it on an 8-bit machine, you know, how it will play. But, you know, do I really dare do this? And, you know, there's things like that that happens, you know, and so, you know,
mm-hmm.
it's a lot of feelings both ways.
Yeah, can I ask a question about this? Because I kind of missed this controversy that came up recently. If I decided that I knew how to transcode, and a whole bunch of people decided to do a GoFundMe to raise enough money, and I said, you know, if you guys make me $3,000, I will spend the work and transcode this and give it to you. Isn't that the same thing, and is that just as bad?
I don't know. Steve? I don't know what the legality of that is, where you're getting paid for the transcoding, but you don't charge for the game itself.
You're still, from your work, you're still making money. So whether you're getting paid up front or you're getting paid later, you're still making money on it.
Because, I mean, one thing I can unequivocally state is that the work of transcoding is not easy. I mean, I've transcoded PC 8086 code to the CoCo at one time when I did CC Unzip way back in the 90s. And it is a lot of work. It's not like you just ripped off somebody's stuff, just quickly slapped it over and you're done. So there is a lot of work involved, but it's because of the copyrights and trademarks and everything else that's within it, patents possibly, that it starts to get complicated from a legal standpoint. And as I mentioned at the top of the discussion, for me, there's two separate sets of issues here. There's the legal issues, which is kind of encoded in law, but there's also the morality issue of, should you be selling something that you didn't creatively create, but you did do a lot of work, involving your time, which you should get reimbursed for, I would feel, for doing it. But maybe people shouldn't try to do this in the first place if it's too much of a legal, black or gray area.
Separate from the ownership of the graphics of the game or the software and the algorithms that control how it operates, does the value of the programming skills of the programmer have any value? I mean,
I would argue
everyone,
yes.
Not everyone can. I don't have the skills of a Steve Bjork or Nick Marentes or John Strong. I couldn't write games like they do. I couldn't write software like they do. I'd take me 10 years to learn enough programming skills to do the simplest of games that they have done. And where they are now, they'll be 10 years ahead of me in 10 years. Not everyone can program. Not everyone can transcode. Not everyone can produce a game that's decent. And that has to have some value other than the ownership of the copyrightable, elements of a game or any software.
Well, one of the advantages of a transcode game, and that's one reason why we're excited when we do see the transcode games like Donkey Kong come over to the Coco, it is like playing the arcade game. It is, Donkey Kong's going to respond exactly, the way he does, throwing the barrels.
If you learn patterns, they work properly because it's actually the original quote-unquote code.
Yeah.
Just translated.
So what you're doing is you are doing a extremely faithful translation of the original work. Unlike a port where you have areas which are to the interpretation of the programmer.
Like I did with Pac-Man.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, clean room implementation style.
Yeah, so there's pros and cons to both. I do get excited when I see a translation because I know I've got the original game playing on that platform, and it's a lot of work. I mean, what he did with Donkey Kong, he didn't sit down and do that in an evening. It probably took him longer to do the translation than actually do a port.
Yeah, same with Glenn doing Pac-Man, and same with Mark doing Knight's Lore.
There's supposedly a Defender transcode in the works.
Yep, the same guy that did Pac-Man is actually. I've seen the early demo of it.
And the work is great, and do they deserve some money for there? I don't have a problem with that. Just whether it's legal and ethical, that's the other question.
I guess who should be getting
would
the
I buy
money?
the cartridge? Yep, very possibly. But we're talking about legal and ethical issues here, and that's where it's the question.
Well, I'm going to go out on a limb and say this. I'm not an attorney. I may be married to one, but I'm not an attorney. Him selling it, I really don't see much of a problem, but he does run the risk of minimum getting a cease and desist letter. Worst case, he gets sued. So it's his prerogative whether or not he wants to try and make money off of his work.
I mean, he'd probably be smart.
Agree.
I think he'd probably be smart if he went to the original author to begin with and negotiated something.
If you can find the original author.
Yeah.
I think I have to double check, but I think Microsoft did buy the rights to Knight's Lore at some point because they are including it on a pack they released in 2015, some retro thing. So I mean, it's Microsoft you might be talking to.
The rights holder you need to go to.
Yeah, not the author, the rights holder.
Yeah.
And remember, a lot of people have the attitude it's better to ask forgiveness than ask permission.
Yeah. And I think we are a small enough market that it's probably going to go under the radar and it won't be a problem for anybody whether he charges or not, to be honest. Like you said, Steve, he runs the risk that something could happen if they decide to elevate it.
So, I know I'm not going to go alert Microsoft on it. I'm not going to bring it to their attention.
I'm not either.
What about a game like Hunt the Wumpus, which was also a recent release on cartridge for the Coco? That's been around forever on mainframes and every.
Yeah, it was a text-based game originally.
Isn't that in the public domain? The concept, that original game, probably.
I don't know.
That's a good question.
I know the port we have is based on the TI-99 graphics version, like the graphics are just about identical. So if the graphics are copyrighted, then we might be running an issue there. I don't know.
Okay. Hey, can we take a commercial break?
I think it would be a good time for that.
Yeah, I think we've pretty well wrapped up. There's no easy solution to this anyway. It's more opinions at this point and some legalese.
Yeah.
Well, I'm grateful for emulation. We would lose a lot of stuff to history, and I know there's moral implications to that, but it'd be a shame to lose.
I will say I am planning on buying it once my finances are better. So just on the record, I have nothing against it. I do like it. I did like seeing it at the fest.
Okay, so why don't we go ahead? We're going to do a commercial break. We do have a lot more to discuss when we come back. And also, if anybody's got time for announcements or other acquisitions, get those ready because we'll go through that too.
You are watching CoCoTALK, the world's leading weekly video podcast featuring the Tandy Color computer. We spread the love to the past, present, and future for all models, including the original color computer, the Coco 3, and the world-renowned exclusive French-Canadian Coco 2, the Radio Shack.
Hey, this is Bruce Moore, author of Force of Doom, and you're watching the original gamer, CoCoTALK.
Only the bravest souls enter. Only the most cunning return. Defeat innumerable monsters to ransom the king's scepter, stolen by the evil wizard. Your sword, shield, and wits are your only allies. Pray you find a magical inn as your only respite in the forest of doom.
For the Tandy Color Computer 1, 2, and 3.
November 2017, if you dare.
It's a Radio Shack Merry Christmas.
Oh, I remember that Christmas. Dad gave me my first shortwave radio from Radio Shack. What memories. This Christmas, we got our son's Color Computer 3 from Radio Shack. It hooks right up to our TV and was on sale for less than $130. The Color Computer 3 makes learning fun. Jimmy even lets me use it for word process when he isn't playing computer games. Lucky I still got my shortwave.
Save $70 on the sale-priced Color Computer 3, only at Radio Shack.
We now return you to CoCoTALK.
I've actually gotten YouTube copyright violations for for covering songs. So if my performances are that good that they threaten the record sales, I'm taking.
That's a feather in your cap.
So you're safe then.
Or your red hat, as it may be. Hopefully that's not copyrighted.
It also covered my terrible hair that one day. But anyway.
Hey, can I throw a little? Can I throw a little thing in there?
Hello,
Bruce, yeah, Bruce here. Hey, that I'm not sure if it was that Force of Doom commercial or a different one, but I got a copyright ding on it a little while ago. Someone in because I've got some video clips in there that I didn't generate, and somebody in South America was claiming it belonged to them, and so it was gonna be taken down. But I was able to go back through my records and find my receipt because I actually licensed those little extra video clips in there, and so I could send it in and show no, it's mine. So I don't know what was going on there, but I'm really glad I dotted my I's and crossed my T's.
Wow.
Yeah.
Is it a copyright troll?
Well, who knows, right? They were saying it was theirs, and I could show, look, this is for sale, and I licensed it. So then there's okay. So it was unlocked immediately. So.
Yeah, I've got something much worse than that. When Apple released GarageBand, they gave you a bunch of royalty-free jingles to use in your productions.
Yes. Yeah.
And somebody indeed used one, and it's on a CD. It's almost exactly the track from GarageBand, wherever Apple got it from, just with a little bit added on top of it. And because that is a copyrighted CD, all of my old videos that use that production library get copyright dings constantly on YouTube. They never take them down, but they always warn me. So there you go. Whoever gets there first. Yep.
Yeah, it's the algorithm. Yeah, I see it. Yeah. Okay.
So, do we keep running the commercial in the future?
Yeah. Does anybody have And a unique acquisition that they want to talk about this week. We'll start with that first.
Well, Nick Marota's got
Is Richard here?
Yes, he is. I don't know if he's got his mic on, but he's here.
Okay, so so I'll talk about my stuff a little bit then. So yeah, I had a 128K Coco 3 until yesterday, and now it's 512. And I was, have to admit, I was nervous about doing the procedure because my skills in the real world with tangible objects are not as good as my skills with bits and bytes and intangible stuff. So I was very fortunate that I had a couple of great friends hang out with me. That would be Curtis and Nick Marentes. They stayed with me on video chat and walked me through it and gave me the push I needed to pull the old chips out, which was scary for me, and to pull the capacitors. Putting the new board in was easy peasy. That was like the simplest part. It was getting it prepped for that, which I was scared about, because I have this thing about, if I mess up and I can't go back to where I was, then I'm sure it's pretty common. But yeah, I got the 512K in, and then immediately ran the 512K tester program, and it came clean. We ran the Donkey Kong, that came clean. And then to pay back Curtis, I humored him and got ease of use going, and it was actually really cool. And I'm going to play with it more because it's actually a really nice environment.
Yeah, and now you have to order all of Nick's games too, because he helped too.
Yes, I have to. Oh, absolutely. I'll be getting Popstar Pilot. Absolutely. That's one of the reasons I wanted 512 was for Popstar Pilot, and so yeah, I'll be ordering that. And yeah, it was actually really easy procedure. Once I got the fourth RAM chip out, I was an expert and at pulling RAM chips, and the capacitors were a little scary, like I said, but yeah, it went in really nice, and I'm thrilled.
So are you ready to offer your services to everybody else now that was in the same boat as you, and you'll start doing their upgrades? Or
you can compete against Richard now.
So I want to thank Curtis and Nick for being there for me, and they didn't take off on me. I was joking with them that once the RAM chips were out, they'd hang up on me and leave me alone, leave me to my own devices, but they didn't do that.
No, we were just hoping for the magic smoke to come out, but unfortunately, actually, fortunately, it didn't happen.
We were just laughing so hard.
Thanks to Coco Man, who sent me the memory as a gift. I really appreciate that, and thanks to Richard Lorbieski for creating it. It was fantastic. So I'm very grateful for the Coco community. I have to say, you guys have been really great to me. I'm relatively new compared to some of you, and it's been really awesome in the help I've received, and just thank you guys.
On behalf of Nick and myself and everybody else in the Coco community, you're welcome, and enjoy your 512K.
So the next step is a 609 to 6309 upgrade.
Yes. See, you guys
might as well do 2 meg at the same time.
You guys are enablers too. Go back and look 3 videos ago behind me. There was no Coco stuff, so come on. I think I'm doing pretty well. I got a Coco 2, a Coco 3, an SDC, and a switcheroo cable, and a bunch of stuff in 2 weeks. So I think I'm doing okay.
Is that the switcheroo running now?
No, I'm waiting for an adapter. So I'm going through composite right now. Just the Coco 3's native composite. I'm just waiting for the adapter that I can use to convert from SCART to. I'm gonna go component actually. So.
Marota.
Hello.
So now that you're going to get into ease of use, you're going to have to get a mouse adapter from Mark Overholt.
Yes, and I'm gonna brush up on my C because I love C.
If there's one thing the Coco community is good at, is upselling.
Oh, I know. Oh, absolutely. You guys are enablers. I know. It's
Wait, but don't buy yet.
Okay, well, we got 2 more people that want to jump in here with some stuff. We'll go to Simon first, and then we'll go to Alan Hoffman. So take it away, Simon.
You can get off me if you.
Where'd you get that from?
Are you guys stuck in my video?
Okay, man. I guess Simon's taken away. I misread it.
No.
Yeah, you're fine.
Okay, why don't we go to Alan Hoffman?
Okay, I had to go back and reread something because I thought it was a non-disclosure. Actually, it's not. This is my evaluation agreement I signed between myself and RTSI for trying out a current version of Microware OS 9 that's going to be running on my newest OS 9 computer. So this is my new OS 9 computer. Thank you, John Strong. I'm finally going to use it for something more appropriate. It's a Raspberry Pi Zero, and I have the code now for Microware's OS 9 for ARM ported to Raspberry Pi that I am going to be working on and evaluating this weekend.
What's the processor specs on that? How fast?
It's about
Muted,
1
Alan.
gigahertz, I believe, on the Zero.
Yeah, and it's it's only like 512, whatever.
RAM,
it's
yeah.
it's a small
Megabytes.
Yeah. But ironically, it's probably more powerful and bigger than anything that existed when I last worked for Microware in the ARM processing that we had. And I saw some really amazing stuff back then. I'm just hoping it can boot a whole lot faster than Linux does.
I was pretty impressed with the Raspberry Pi 1 and running the Linux distro on. It's like, wow.
I have a Pi Zero not doing anything, so I'm looking forward to Alan's port of OS 9. Now you're going to port not Nitrous 9. You're going to port OS 9 because I guess there is no Nitrous 9 port to the ARM.
Well, this is actual real Microware OS 9 for ARM. It used to be called OS 9000. That's been around since, the 1990s. It's just been revised and updated. There's a whole new company now, worldwide group of people that own Microware OS 9. And this is going to be part of the community edition that we're going to be able to get dirt cheap if we just want to play with it, including a license. So if you want to make a certain amount of products based on like a Raspberry Pi, you're going to be able to license an OS 9 to distribute with it for your projects. So it's pretty amazing. It'll be the cheapest official supported OS 9 system. It'll cost less than OS 9 ever did on the color computer.
I'm looking forward to it, so can't wait.
Yeah, Alan, shoot me some information on that if you would.
What was Simon showing there?
That was just a Raspberry Pi with a 7-inch touchscreen connected to it.
Ooh.
So yeah, I've got one of those as well.
That'd be cool. Touchscreen OS 9.
I have to admit, I've got every Raspberry Pi computer, and a few of them just sitting there collecting dust. Ooh, there's a new one, and now there's a Raspberry Pi 4 in the works, which is actually going to have a M.2 adapter on it, so you can hook up an SSD to it.
You have to admit they're pretty cool, those dudes.
Oh yeah. Well, the thing is, booting's a little slow because of that because of the SD card. But you can imagine what it's going to be like with a regular computer's M.2.
Oh yeah, that'd be wicked fast.
You're looking at load speeds of about 50 times faster. That's going to make it nice because I have to admit
that's going to solve my problems.
Yeah, when I watch a Raspberry Pi boot, I'm going, am I watching an old 9200 terminal program? With the text scrolling by is just really slow.
It's kind of like watching you load all those stupid fonts I have in there.
Yeah, we'll try installing Windows IoT on a Raspberry Pi. Then you're talking slow boot.
Hey, can I just thank everybody that gave me feedback on the new joystick design at the fest? Just real quick, thank you to everybody.
And what was the feedback? What did they say?
They all seem to like it very well. Okay, it's very smooth moving. They like the buttons very well because they're little arcade buttons. Down to liking the cable being flat and flexible as it is. Smooth filling. The little extras, the left and right switch on it, they like that. So pretty much liked it across the board.
Now, is that an actual Coco product now, or is that a future product?
I had some I sold at the fest, the first pre-production run. Okay. And so I am taking, people, if they want to email me, so they would like interested in one, I'm judging about what it's going to take to do an actual run of them.
You have a price for them?
$35 is my aim price. Hopefully I can keep it at that.
Okay.
All right.
All based on how large your production runs are, right?
Yeah, it could creep up to 40. But I'm going to make a little PC board in there, make the wiring down, and see what kind of quantities and stuff. So, yeah, I'm trying to keep it reasonable with it. And I know back in the day that would look to me like it's totally unreasonable, but parts of that cost more than what a Black Beauty did. A lot more, and it's a lot smoother. So, again, I had some very positive feedback with that at the fest. I could have sold more if I had more made. And so thanks to everybody who gave me some good feedback. That helps me to improve and see whether to do more of them. So,
what would it take to get you to make a paddle box?
The paddle box is on my list of things to do. Okay, I actually have some designs. I've actually did some things about making maybe 2 paddles in one box, single paddles designs. It is on my list of things that I'm planning to do, and it's actually simpler and easier to do than what this is. But this was what I thought is what we really needed for some things in the community, was another source for analog joysticks. I have a design for the arcade ones that I'm going to be producing, hopefully. But, if you don't have an analog stick, unless you run into a Hamfest and find something, that old PC one that you're willing to convert, you're kind of out of luck. And so this is kind of the reason for making sure this was available, and you get some feedback at the fest.
Well, the thing I've always wanted was a paddle, for the Coco. We never really got one from Tandy. And basically, you would have one button, one paddle in the box, and you would have 2 boxes hooked up to one joystick for it. That way you could have a total of 4.
Exactly.
4, you could do Warlords.
That's actually one of the reasons I was working on it, was considering doing that. But if somebody like you decided you wanted to do that, I would defer to the better skill level.
Well, no. Have you make the paddle control, but me do the software. I consider that that might be a good lesson plan when I start doing the assembly language classes again.
Yeah, you're kind of low in volume, at least on my side. I don't know if that's for everybody else.
Is that a little better?
Yes.
That's better.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so, that's one of the reasons I was looking at doing that. Okay. And I've actually done a little Y cable type thing box, and I've shipped one, and I do need to do a PC board. So I actually do a Y cable that you can plug multiple devices into. Okay. So I'm planning to do that. So there'll be adapters, so you can do, 2 paddles for each joystick controller. So that is on my list of plans to do. Okay. I've also considered doing a paddle box that has 2 in one. Not so much for games, but I'm thinking it could very be useful for other items like sound boards and stuff, adjusting with the new sound chips we have, to be able to analog adjust that kind of feel, more analog feel. I also picked up a few sliders, potentiometers to maybe make a box with, to play with. And so, I've got a list of things that I want to do with that. And the paddle's definitely on the list. And it was just trying to get things that would do and fit, in a pretty small design and simple to do. I was going to say I've got one here somewhere. Oh, okay. That's part of the sample. Buttons hopefully would go on the side, and I may actually have 2 buttons on it. Okay, but if you like plug it into the Y cable, and then only one would be available, or they would both work the same, because in the Y, because you can't feed 4 buttons into it, the single joystick is the adapter would then tie those together, so you could use either button. Use it individually, you could still have 2 buttons if you had application for that. That's what my current plan is. Of course, you know, that's just a plan at this point in time. As we do have the pot in there, some kind of layout on it. You know, trying to find, you know, the proper switches it's going to hold up and stuff. So that'll be some testing. I need to make a little PC board and see how well they seem to hold up. And since you're interested, you know, if I get a prototype, I may ping you and say, hey, try it out, use it, abuse it, and see if I've done a good design on it. Okay.
Okay.
And basically finding small switches that fit in a size like this. The box with maybe 2 of these would probably be something more on a larger box and fixture, so I could use the arcade buttons on it, because, you know, pretty much we know they're going to hold up pretty good. And if I use the arcade button on that, that's going to, you know, like significantly increase the size of the joystick, and I kind of like that small size. But it might be something we need to go to. But it's still prototype stages, experimenting. The one thing I definitely like, and this one's a little too thin, I like the little thumb indent here.
Yep.
Yeah, you know, so yeah, I've seen it on high-end equipment, ham radio equipment, and it's like, hey, that's really nice. So I had to try it out, and so yeah, it is really nice. So you can either play it the old traditional type way, or just use your thumb here.
Plus, it also gives you a visual feedback of where you are on the paddle.
Yes, yes, definitely. So, you know, I'm trying to do, and you know, this is the idea. I'm trying to take these to maybe say the next level over what we had, and but again, they're kind of custom here. These are really pain in the neck to build. They're all hand wired and everything, so I've got to change that a little bit to make them practical to produce. So, you know, I've got to put a PC board and do that. And I can design it. I just don't use KiCad often enough. So when I go back to do something, I have to go back through the tutorials all again to remember everything.
Well, if somebody wants to get one of your joysticks, how would they go about it?
Well, right now, just email me is how we're doing it.
Okay, and how do they email you?
Okay, johnstrong@hotmail.com.
Okay.
Okay. I'm also on Facebook. You there, say have one on the list, and I'll put you on the list.
Okay. And you also, for payments, you take PayPal, right?
Yes. In spite of them trying to force me to give them the Social Security number, I'm still using PayPal. They were doing this bit. Oh, we're going to, you know, limit your account and a bunch of things. And I had a little row with them on the phone the other day, kind of annoyed at it, but most people do PayPal yet. So yes, I still take it.
Okay, so your email, is it John Strong, all one word, or is it John.Strong?
Just John Strong,
okay,
with the H and John at Hotmail. And so if you're interested on being on that list, if I produce those, please let me know. That gives me an idea, you know, how much effort. You know, I got cysts from the Cocoa Fest. You know, those I would probably, that's all I was making, I would just hand wire those. Okay. But, you know, I get enough on there, I'll find a PC board.
Yeah, the thing to remember is these are custom printed cases, so it's not something that he's went out and bought 500 of them from a manufacturer. These are things that he's manufacturing himself. So he doesn't really keep a lot of inventory, and sometimes if he gets a rush, it may slow down a little bit. These machines aren't the fastest.
Oh yeah, it's definitely a custom order, okay? And if you email me and if I think there's something that's going to hold up time, I'll tell you. And so and I've told people to wait, send me on PayPal, okay? It's going to, you know, I've got something going on this week. It'll be week. I will let you know when I get it done, and then you can PayPal me then. That way I'm not holding their money and they're worrying about it because they paid me something they're not getting. And so it is strictly a very custom deal. And so this is, I'm hoping, with the planned move to new house, I'll be able to set things up a little bit better. And if you can see the background here in an apartment, it's a mess in here because I simply don't have place to put things. And actually, my wife wanted to go. I delayed her till tomorrow. Wants to go to IKEA, so we can start looking at stuff for the new house. Hopefully, if it works there, to be able to put things in. We want to look at stuff for the garage and make things that we can actually make some of this as a hobby a little easier, instead of encroaching and have to move this to do that type thing.
John, you're like a lot of us. If I didn't have this green screen behind me, you'd be seeing an absolute mess.
And I've actually thought about that. I looked at and found when I could do that, and then I've thought about, hey, I'll drop the screen behind me and actually do that. But yeah, it's there. That's what it is, and I have to use this for my office, for my day job, and for everything else I do. And fortunately, there's a couple things setting up the other room that my wife has let me do because she knows that there, and we've been working on getting a house. So I greatly appreciate a wife who understands the hobby, likes to go to Coco Fest with me at the Big Help.
Well, there's a keeper.
Yeah, definitely. Does anybody? Richard, do you have something to announce?
Not right now. Nope.
Oh, okay.
I think Chris Oliver had something.
Okay, Chris.
Hey, gentlemen. I just happened to be buzzing through, and figured I'd say a quick hi from Arlington, Virginia. Let me walk over here and grab it real quick.
Okay. See, everybody's place is a mess. Don't feel bad.
That's right. I don't know if you guys have seen this one before, but I'd never heard of this before. I just picked this up about a week or so ago. It's called Remote Disc. And what's weird about it is I've never seen it in any of the Radio Shack catalogs anywhere. But apparently it is a program that allows the CoCo to connect. Looks like it allows the CoCo to connect up to a Model 100 and use the drive on the Model 100 as external storage. Has any of you guys heard of this before?
I can't say I have.
I haven't heard about it.
It's I'd never heard of it before, but it's a legitimate product that runs on the CoCo, and it basically, you got to have the right cablage, but it will allow you to interface to the Model 100 and use the disc.
Looking at the catalog number, though, that prefix, the 7 whatever, wasn't that the express order for the third party?
700?
Yeah.
It looks like it's 263849.
Well, the very, very top there, that catalog
73405.
Yeah. I think that was express order stuff, which was...
Yeah, the 700s were the express.
So
it's just interesting.
Something kind of like DriveWire.
Is that why it probably never showed up in like any of the Radio Shack catalogs anywhere?
Yeah, you'd have to get this special express order catalog where you could order like disto controllers and stuff. So that that would have been rare.
It looks like he's the standard cable though, the 26 one.
Yeah, it uses the 263014. Looks like.
It just shows that there's nothing. There's no new ideas. Even DriveWire was not a new idea.
Yeah.
Right.
Though DriveWire is a fair bit faster, I would guess.
Gee, I wonder if DriveWire would get sued because.
Hey, Chris, how long have you been in to CoCo's? What's your history?
So when I was 12, my dad gave me a CoCo 1 4K, and that's what I learned how to program on as a kid.
Still have it?
And I don't have that one, but I've got one that's souped up at 64K with DCB in it that I picked up on. When I turned 40, I got nostalgic and started collecting again.
Welcome to the club.
Like everybody else on here.
Yeah, it's a common affliction.
Club.
And so I found a 3001 model that was Radio Shack upgraded with the official sticker on it from the shop.
Wow.
The 64K with extended color basic, and they actually put the 64K badge on the case. And so it's never been opened except for just by somebody at a local Radio Shack who upgraded it. So I was able to pick that up, and that's kind of become the souped up version of what I had as a kid.
Do you have a 3?
I when the 3 came out, I was in high school, and at that point I moved on to other stuff. So, but the other one that I want to pick up a Model 3, because when I was younger, when I was about 10, I first started messing around on a Model 3, and actually taught my entire 3rd grade class how to program on it during social studies period every day. I took a different student each day and showed them how to print a pixel on this, light a pixel on the screen and print their name. So I want to find one of those old gray beasts at some point too, if I can.
Tandy Assembly would probably be a place to start.
Yeah. But it's great to meet you guys.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for coming on.
Come on again.
So now I gotta pick up a Model 100 so I can test this thing out.
Well, I know Jason has a drive for the thing there, so you should be
Right,
maybe hook up with him.
That's the same drive I just picked up for the Model 100. That little.
Yeah.
I think I just picked one of those up.
There you go.
You want to put that on?
You guys will have to collaborate on that.
Put that up on the archive.
So I wonder, does the Model 100 drive, is it a serial interface, or do you have to have the that expansion box to use that CoCo to 100 interface?
That's a good question. I see that again, I haven't looked at it that much, but the Model 100 drive has a 25 pin D subtype connector on it, a male connector. So.
Well, then you're fine, because this thing just needs a 4-pin DIN to DB25. So yeah, I'd probably just connect right to it. Probably.
Interesting.
Yep.
Wow, new ideas.
Maybe that's why that drive was in with all that CoCo stuff.
Maybe.
I think this is what Fletcher used. You'll go far.
Hey, Chris, how long have you been watching CoCoTALK? I'm just curious.
It's actually my first one.
Wow.
I'll show you guys one of the interesting little artifact.
Oh, the original Star Blaster from Microcom, the cartridge version.
Yeah, it kind of looks pretty homebrew, kind of.
Did you have it for a long time, or?
I've had this thing for a couple years, but I don't know if the manual even exists for it, but I do have the cartridge.
That was one of the very few third-party cartridges made.
Yeah, it's got this. It looks like it was put out by Microworks, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was able to find that in a
their Asteroids clone.
Yeah, Tandy could easily put out the cartridges because they manufacture them in such large quantities. They could get the cost down. Third-party people doing it, not so easy.
Not so easy.
So you don't see yourself having a Color Computer 3 in the future? Or do you have emulator?
Well, here's the thing. It's funny. I guess I'm kind of just like a nostalgic purist, because like I've only collected exclusively for the CoCo one. So in other words, 64K and under, I'll get anything that I can find. But it's more for just pure nostalgia. So I'm literally all silver case CoCo 1, and that's about it. It's just kind of I ended up and just like probably many of you, I ended up in an IT career because of programming as a kid. So it's kind of an homage to the computer that helped build my living.
Oh, nothing wrong with that.
So
that's cool.
It's just kind of a way to give it some honor, So I kind of have a Smithsonian exhibit in the office, pretty much. It's all functional, it all works, and so.
Yeah, get a couple of shots of it and throw it up on our group.
Oh, sure.
So did you say you showed your students how to program on it?
Yeah, I I was like the one kid in the class that knew some basic. I think it was like this was probably 4th grade, and our class had a Model 3 that was set up in the corner that was just in the room. And the teacher made a deal with me. So during social studies every day, I took one kid every day for about a month until I'd done about all 30 of them, and walked them through, the typical print your name and then go to 10 type loop, and then showed them how to light up a pixel.
Oh, that's cool.
And what's funny is that was the one C I ever got in grade school. It's because I wasn't paying attention during social studies for a month. So I got like my one and only C in all of grade school because I was too busy teaching kids how to program on it.
There you go.
And Chris, you said you lived in Virginia.
Well, back then it was up Michigan City, northern Indiana.
But now?
But now I'm in Arlington. Yeah,
okay,
just near DC.
So you have several of the VCF shows available to you: the VCF East and the VCF Southeast.
Yeah, I just got to find time to go. I got 3 very, very young kids that kind of sap my strength.
Yeah, you never know. You might find a Model 3 at one of those shows.
I think the trick is finding one that's in good shape because they're all so banged up. It's hard to find one that really looks mint.
You'll never find one that looks mint.
Kind of like finding a Coco one that doesn't have, the wear marks on, where your hands rest on the keys,
You can repaint one. People have repainted them. There are YouTube videos.
Yep. And of course, I'm such a purist that I actually prefer, just for nostalgia's sake, the chiclet keyboard. I really do.
Yeah, you want to recreate your experience you had as a kid.
Because that's what I had as a kid. So
yeah.
I mean, it's like it's meant to be a time capsule.
I get it.
Okay, well, we're coming up on our next break. Nick, do you have a segment for this week?
Well, I could just show off my work with Gunstar so far. Nothing too much to show, but we can just cover that if you want.
Okay, we'll do a quick break, and then we'll come back to Nick, and we'll take a look at his latest project.
Okay.
Hi, it's Ron Dovo, Timberman, and this is CoCoTALK.
In a world where RGB produces black and white video, one cable can make a difference. Switcheroo. CoCo3ScartCable.com.
Some people have big plans after school. You know what Elliot's going to do? Jeff, too. Elliot's at work on a book report using Scripted on Radio Shack's Color Computer 3. It hooks up to his TV. And Jeff's at his Radio Shack Color Computer 3 playing the newest football game. But wait, what's Elliot doing playing New Super Pitfall? And Jeff's having a blast with a new math tutor. You never know what you might try with more than 100 programs for fun and learning. Radio Shack's Color Computer 3 comes with everything you see here. Other items each sold separately. Only at Radio Shack.
We now return you to CoCoTALK.
Hey, anybody else ever notice on that last commercial, the Black Beauty is the newer style with the black handle?
I'll tell you what,
Until you mentioned it.
Who dared to crush one of these on a commercial?
Commodore 64. Yeah.
Who dared to crush one of them?
You're talking the Monty Python bit.
Okay, Nick, why don't you take it away?
Yeah.
Your latest project here.
Okay, well, it's the same latest one as last time. Oh, yeah, okay, we can make it's a professional show, so we better have it, yeah. Okay, well, I've been working on my Gunstar. I think last time I did my blog, I reported I was on a bit of a run there, and I got a fair bit done, but I paused from there, and then the next job was to get the sprites moving. And that's a fairly complicated routine because it has to be able to deal with, at the moment, it's got 5 different alien sprites that have to be animated on the screen, and they have to fly certain flight patterns and all that. So I've got them at least flying down the screen in a sort of a semi-random fashion. There's still the routine I call the alien scheduler that has to be put in to actually coordinate when these aliens are going to appear, what aliens and what flight path. But I've put together just a little demo of the program so far. I'll just run it in BCC and I'll just share that screen. Hang on a sec. Now, I think there's a screen currently being shared at the moment, and I can't share mine
free.
yet. It's free now?
Yep.
Okay, yep. All right, so that is Gunstar coming up at the moment. Can you see that now?
Yeah, we can see it.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, now that's the title screen. So I'm going to run this through VCC. So
prepare for battle.
Okay, now we've seen this part before. We have got the laser base on the bottom of the screen and the background coming down. At the moment, I've just set it up so that when I hit spacebar, it just launches a whole lot of aliens at the top of the screen. And of the 5 aliens that are currently in there, I'm only showing 3 because I don't want to give away everything today. I'll just leave some surprises for people playing the game. So you'll see 3 different aliens, and I'll just press a button now, and you'll just see a whole pile of them just come down and just float around the screen. So as you can see, I'll press it again. They basically fly on, fly around a bit, and then fly away. And in the final game, of course, they'll be shooting, and you've got to dodge them. And at the moment, of course, there's no collision detection. But as you can see, the sprites are all quite well superimposed and merged with the scrolling background. I'll just keep throwing aliens out. And I have got various can also fire, but nothing can be killed. But the main thing is that I've got the aliens now running, and they're all animated and everything.
So this version would be good for Steve.
Yeah,
yeah, that's right. He can't die.
Yeah, the only way
training level
is if he's in God mode.
Yeah, this is essentially God mode. That's right. But yeah, the next step is to write the routine that'll actually schedule when, which alien, and which flight path to take. So at the moment, it's just got some rough flight paths that I put in there, but you know they. I'll fine tune that. Yep.
So Nick, some of these guys are going to be worth more points than other ones.
Yeah. They'll have different points, and the way they attack will be different. Some of them will actually just fly more vertical. Others will swirl around on the screen, and others later on will do loops. And anyway, I won't say what the others are, but they're in there. But just for this demo, I've just turned them off. Got to leave some surprises for people playing the game, don't I?
Mm-hmm.
I take it you're looking at also throwing in power-ups to change and equip yourself.
Yep. There's 3 different firing styles in there. So there'll be another sprite that comes on where you have to gain in the top right of the screen. You can see I've got these gauges. So one gauge is for the energy of your ship. The other gauge is the energy of your guns. And you do have a few extra weapons there. You've got, as well as firing, you've got some thing called the fusion bomb. So I'll just throw out a few more aliens. But yeah, that's what Gunstar's up to at the moment. The background repeating is just a level 1 background just being repeated over and over.
Are you going to have any kind of music at all playing?
Well, at this stage, no, not while the game's playing. As we've heard so many times in the past, it's very hard to have good music playing in the background while the game's playing. So at this stage, no. But we'll see what we can do. I mean, it's got all the sound effects, I think you can hear the sound effects in there at the moment.
Yep.
Yeah. So so the digital sound effects are all in there.
Have you
but
have you thought about like a motor sound or a hum or something, or
well,
what's all that cost?
it all costs. The more sound you trying to generate, it just slows down the main game. So we don't have the freedom of a sound chip. Whether I support one of the sound cards or the mega multi-pack sound chip, I don't know. At this point, I've got no information on. Well, I don't have those devices either. But yeah, who knows? At this stage, no. Yeah, so yeah, that's all I've got to show.
That's cool.
Thanks.
Yeah, even in the early arcade games, they didn't have a lot of music. It was later when they started having more elaborate sound hardware.
You really do need a sound chip to play decent music. As it is, Gunstar doesn't really give enough free time in the CPU to be able to do it via software. If I did that, the game would slow right down.
Has anybody in the past done a game where they would include a cassette of maybe some music that you could have the cassette port open and you could play music while you're...
Forest of Doom.
Forest of Doom, yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
Bruce Moore's game actually had a set of MP3s and stuff you could play in the background through the cassette port.
In the case of the arcades, there was a shark game that actually had an 8-track in there, and the screams of the people dying when the shark ate them, and you were controlling the shark, they would just play the 8-track sound. And the video game Journey had a cassette. When you got through all the levels, the band played, and the audio came from the cassette.
Right.
Cool.
Old school.
But see, in the early days, yeah, sound had to improve like graphics.
One time I made a kiosk for a car dealership, and I had the Coco in it, and I played a commercial that would roll itself, and they had the commercial from like TV or something recorded on a cassette, and it would click on and play the cassette in a loop, and the commercial, or the graphics would run, so it would be a continual, and it didn't have to, like, the sound ended and started, and it, irregardless of what was on the screen, and it didn't really matter because it was all just advertising anyway. So that was interesting.
So Nick, what's the next step in your game?
The next step, well, to actually get the aliens to come out at intelligent parts of the game. At the moment, I'm just throwing them out via space bars to test them, but now it's the sprite manager program has to go in. The thing that decides, okay, at what point, what aliens and what flight path they will take throughout the whole game. So that's the next step. And then after that, hopefully I'll get the firing. Well, I can fire, but they're adding their firing, so they're firing at me, and then putting collision detection, of course. I mean, the bullets are no good if no one dies, so you've got to have the collision detection in there.
And when are you adding the real-time clock in the upper left corner? That was my question.
No, well, I could easily
I can
add
tell
one
it's
in
2
there.
in the morning. I should be getting to sleep and quit playing this damn game.
Do you also have to make it so that the main spacecraft, when it gets hit, it has to be destroyed, or you have
there's explosions to go in, and there's boss aliens to go in, and there's another 3 more levels or background for the 3 extra levels that I've got to put in there as well. Got some ideas on that.
Did you say it was 6309 only, or is it going to be 6309?
Yeah, I'm doing it 6309. I figure there's enough 6309s out there, so it's for them, because I really do need the speed. I mean, there's a fairly fancy or very flexible sprite routine in there, which makes all the overlaying of sprites very easy. It's actually very easy to code. But yeah, there is a bit of a price to pay, and it does require a 6309 just to get that extra speed.
Yeah.
Finally.
For those folks that are going to upgrade their CoCos with a 6309, unless you've done this type of work before, find somebody that has done it before to do it. Those traces come off the circuit board a little too easy.
Yeah, yeah.
I could show you examples of those too.
Of course, there's some people that can do the work for you, right, Richard?
Oh yeah, I do it, and there's several other people that are more than capable of doing it as well. But yeah, if you've never done this or have very little experience, I mean, you're absolutely right. Get somebody else to do it. It's worth the money.
Yeah,
Again,
and at the same time, you can upgrade to 2 meg too. So
yeah, you could do that. Yeah, absolutely.
It's a shame that the Coco never had socketed CPUs like in the Coco ones.
Yes. Totally agree.
Well, looks like we've been joined by Tony Pedraza.
Hey there, Tony.
Hi, Tone.
Good day, y'all. Just listening for a while.
Oh, welcome to the show, Tony. Long time no see since the fest.
Still recovering from the fest, I take it, Tony?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, just about done. I'm just about caught up.
Did you get a final head count?
I'm going to call it at 122.
That's higher than last year, or about the same, or I'm trying to remember.
Yeah, considering we only had about 56 to 60 stubs turned in and a lot were missing. Best estimate last year was about 117. So I'd say a few more this year, yes.
Good.
Cool.
By my counting, not by Lonnie's.
Yes. Yeah, with Lonnie, if you bought a 3-day ticket, you're counted as 3 people.
Yeah.
So are the booth babes included?
Sorry, didn't understand that.
Are the booth babes included?
Oh, they're exhibitors.
Yes,
So
they are included in that number.
Yeah, okay.
They may be exhibitors, but they're also attendees.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm imagining what we're expecting more for next year because of the 40th anniversary of the CoCo. So, everybody, if you haven't made it out before or you haven't made it out in a few years, next year is definitely the one to go to.
Are we going to have the cake with the person coming out of the cake and everything?
It'd be a CoCo coming out of the cake.
It'll be me.
Yeah. Oh, great.
Oh, wait, no, we want attendance numbers to go up, Tony. Don't say that.
Oh, sorry.
Well, we can at least do this. At the dinner, we can go to Costco and get a bunch of sheet cakes.
Yeah.
We should have a cake like we had at Penn Fest.
There you go.
Yeah, actually, that was good when you and Nick and everybody else organized that. Or Ron Bull, I guess.
Ron Bull.
Yeah, we can get one of the 3 amigos from to show up to that too.
We have a vote for cake.
The 3 amigos.
Well, we had cake this year.
Have cake and eat it too. Okay, let's see. Is that about Nick? Nick?
Yeah, that's about it for me. Yeah, that's all I've done. What I might do, actually, I was just thinking to close off. How about we run a commercial? But this time, I'll share I'll share my screen. Can you unshare that, Mark?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I have another type of color computer commercial. It's an Australian one. It's an Australian Tandy commercial, which I don't think anyone has seen. So I'm going to run a commercial. So here it goes.
This Christmas, Tandy has a very special offer. A family color computer pack to take away at a very special price. This family computer comes complete with software and costs an incredible $449, a saving of $241.69. It's powerful, educational, and ideal for the young and young at heart. The easy way to start computing. The Color Computer Family Pack from Tandy. Get it while it's hot. Tandy, the biggest electronic store in Australia.
So there you go. There was
was that Donut Dilemma?
That's
yeah,
right.
I think that was a bit of a plug there. He snuck in.
That's right. Yeah. So everyone go run out now and go buy Donut Dilemma from your Tandy store. Yeah, I found that it was in someone else's video. They were playing that ad, and I thought, hang on, that's my software. Back in the day when Tandy was selling it, I'd never seen that commercial, so I thought I grabbed it and I thought I'd play it on CoCoTALk.
I like the fact they did that whole bundle though. Like you got the computer, you got the cassette recorder, you got the joysticks, you got some games.
It was a Christmas package. So yeah, Coco, a cassette player, several programs, of which Donut Dilemma was one. Black Beauties, for 449 Australian dollars, of course.
I know we never did such a bundle like that here in Canada. Steve and the rest of the panel from the States, or did Tandy ever do that kind of a deal in the States?
Not too much, because the thing was they always wanted the lowest price they could have. When you do a bundle, you raise the price. So yeah,
even though you're getting more stuff, it's still,
it's just like, you know, it's just you know.
So they would just sell the computer cheaper, like say $30 off for Christmas or something. That's it. That's all.
In addition to the company-owned stores, there was the franchisee stores, so they had to worry about them too. And a lot of times, you know, like if you do a bundle, you want to discount the bundle, but they don't want to discount the product, because if they sold the product individually, then it will, you know, Tandy would have to pay for the discount. Everybody was cheap.
Hey, Mark Overholzer. Mark Overholzer.
Yeah. What?
Did Apple ever do any kind of thing like that?
I don't remember that they did. They were always pretty premium on their products. They didn't like to discount stuff.
Plus Apple didn't sell direct except at the very beginning, and then later on they were.
Yeah, they were also their
third-party stores. So.
But I did get a bunch of deals from my local Apple dealer.
Right.
Like the original metal box disc 2s. I went in there one time. It was Team Electronics, which was a fairly national chain based in Minnesota, and our local one where I lived. It said, "Hey, you're interested in a second disk drive, right?" I said, "Yeah." I said, "Yeah, we got one here in the box. It's like, you know, slightly used, but we'll let you have it for like $150, which is like half price." So sometimes they'd sneak you stuff if you're a good customer. But yeah, they didn't have like things usually. They did have a promo one time. They did one time where they had a month where they gave away a computer system a day for 30 days. They alternated between an Apple IIc complete package or a Macintosh 512, I think. And I actually have a friend from college that won one of the Macintoshes.
That would be the next question.
Yeah, but he didn't I didn't have Mac, he had Apple II, so he said, well, can I trade it for a comparable amount of other stuff? So he actually got a whole bunch of parts and pieces and stuff, and he came up with the serial card, the serial interface, and it's like they're $140, right? I said, so what do you do with all this extra stuff? He says, well, I don't know, are you interested in any? I said, sure, I'd be interested in the serial card. How much? He said, $70. So that's half price, brand new. Sure, $70. So
the closest Tandy ever came to quote unquote a bundle in the States was if they incorporated the floppy disk drive with the CoCo, you know, as a package deal. But it was not in a single package. You just got both of them for that price, and you might have saved $10.
Commodore were pretty big in box packages with their Commodore 64 and Amigas, especially in Europe.
Yeah, the more you sell directly to consumers without getting a lot of companies involved, it's easier to do bundles.
Yeah.
And speaking of bundles, if you just to give Nick a little plug there, if you want that Donut Dilemma, you can still get it. It's bundled in with Popstar Pilot, along with the whole back catalog.
Now he's gonna be expecting a royalty there.
Yeah, that's we never negotiated a price for this comment.
Call now. Operators are standing by something.
Includes bonus PenFest footage too.
Oh yeah, I'm still waiting for my royalty check on that.
Me too.
Featuring some of the panel today with more hair.
Or less gray hair in my case.
No hair comments.
Hey, you know, I have less hair. I think Curtis has a little less hair because he had the mullet back then.
Yep, I did.
That's less hair by choice.
Well, you got to remember, in the case of David, he's a bit Australian. His hair is down under.
Oh, grown.
Oh, God.
Oh, crikey.
On the chin.
Oh, isn't that something that should be on the After Dark?
Is Steve
We're getting
here?
close to that. Somewhere in the world, it's dark.
There you go.
The other Steve is here somewhere.
You know, we've been seeing that we've discovered that sticking a computer out in the sun will actually whiten it again. So looking at David Ladd's photo just there on the screen, you know, with a nice white bald head, I can understand you. Do you spend a lot of time outdoors, David?
No, I don't. I spend it sitting behind the computer keyboard.
I was just thinking the
room.
power of the sun it whitens everything.
Yeah, you just retrobrited your head. That's what I thought happened. Sorry.
Well, folks, we're coming up on our 3 hours mark, and unless somebody's got a
speaking of
related news item, I think we're going to have to put this puppy to bed soon.
Well,
I do have.
speaking of
Go ahead,
lightning,
Ron.
yeah.
Go ahead, Curtis.
Oh, no, Ron can go first. We were talking about the retrobyte earlier, and we never did actually get back to it.
Oh, okay.
So.
Go ahead. You want to intro it?
Yeah, I mean, basically, retrobrighting up until recently has been, using peroxide and covering it up with sheets of plastic and stuff, putting it out in the sun, and doing this combination of chemicals and sunlight. But it was recently published on YouTube that you actually don't need the chemicals at all. You just need to bleach the plastic in sunlight, and it's based on UV light. So a few people in the community, Alan Huffman, Ron Delvaux, and a few of the people over in Britain have been trying it over the last week or two. And Ron's here to tell you some of the results.
Okay. Well, what we see here is a joystick, which was pretty yellow. But I must say, at one time I did spread some of that goop on here and set it out in the sun, and it did some lightning. But actually setting it in the sun brought it the rest of the way. Then I also did my controller for the plug-in power, and this turned out lovely. It's nice and light again.
We should mention Ron does have a bulb above him that actually is putting out some yellow light. This stuff is still looking more yellow than it actually is.
Yeah, actually, I probably should turn it off. This is my TP10. It was pretty yellow, and it's come up a few shades. It's looking a lot better. It's not quite as white as the bottom is, but I need to set it out longer. And then this DMP 110, if you can see, it was way yellow. This sucker, if you open up the lid, you could tell the difference between the edge in the inside and the outside. It was quite a bit yellow on the outside, but now it's looking real good. Not quite a white yet, but it's looking great. Then I also did my Coco One white case, and the keyboard has come up really well. The case itself has still a little bit of yellow in it, but I don't know that these were real white, maybe when they were made. I'm not really sure.
Well, those are painted, aren't they? That style case?
I'm not
No,
sure.
not the white ones.
Okay.
You see the bottom has always been protected. And the top is a slight yellow. But the keyboard's in nice shape. Keyboard come from a different machine, obviously. I think this one had a chiclet keyboard at one time.
It probably would have had the melted keyboard if it's the white Coco. So
okay.
Yeah. Originally.
Well,
yeah.
Well, being out in the desert, do you have any problems with this thing's melting?
No, not at all. Well, I would in July or August when it's 120 degrees. 120 degrees is horrid. It's terrible. It's very, very hot.
So you've experimented with various computers and peripherals here. Have you had anything that you've tried that has not made any difference at all?
Just that Coco One, the white one. The white one that hasn't the yellowing hasn't gone away as much as I would have liked.
That's almost 49 centigrade.
There's one other thing that it's tough to get to come white is the keyboard. This one here was out in the sun for a while, but as you can see, it still has a little bit of yellow in it. I don't know if you can notice there that some of the keys are a little yellow.
Yeah.
Compare that to this one, which is a fairly new machine.
We have a question in the chat room. How long did you leave the things out in the sun?
2 days. Actually 2.5 days for the DMP 110. the first day I put it out for like 4 or 5 hours. It was sunny, and then it got cloudy the rest of the day. And so they even say though that even on a cloudy day, you're going to get some UV radiation come through.
So on the whole, though, you'd say it's actually quite successful. It actually has helped.
Yes. Yeah. The more sunshine direct, the better the results. You know, and another thing, on my I had a CoCoMax cartridge, and it was half yellow.
Oh yeah, because half was plugged in and half was out, right?
Yeah, and it has come real close to even. You can still tell it was yellowed some, but if I leave it out longer, it'd probably go completely white. Which you know, if you can put something out safely without having anybody snatch it away from you, and you have constant sun for most of the day, why not? And it doesn't seem to affect the plastic at all. And another thing, the guy in that video mentioned that the actual yellowing is only on a very thin veneer of the surface of the plastic. It doesn't actually go through. He took a key and he cut it in half, and you can see that it's just the absolute top surface that has that yellowing. So when the sun hits it and changes the properties of it, it's just the surface that's getting it.
Ron, something you might want to try. Back in the day, I worked for a computer company that repaired monitors and systems, and we would clean them with like Comet or bleach, and then we would hit them with Armor All. And since Armor All is meant to protect car dashboards and steering wheels and whatnot, and it probably protects them from UV, it might be interesting to see if Armor All would keep a computer from turning yellow again.
Yeah, one thing about Armor All I never liked was the greasy look. You know,
Agreed.
It had like a filmy. There is stuff though. He mentioned a UV thing that you can slather on your machine that doesn't really leave a you know, a tint or a
the glossy
oily
feel?
residue.
Yeah, residue, and it actually does UV protection of some kind.
Do you know what that is, or
No, do I have to go back and look at that?
are you talking about the 8-bit guy video or the other guy, Perifractic?
The other guy that has a really soft voice that'll make you go to sleep after about 10 minutes.
That's got to be Perifractic, because people always say his voice is very calming.
So
His
basically,
videos
the
are
bottom line is, if you got good UV out there, like what you get in the spring and summer, this is a good, cheap way to get your Cocos looking good again.
Yep.
I'm definitely have to give that a try, because one of mine is quite yellowed now. So,
of course, up there in Canada, you probably have to keep it out for a week.
Oh no, since we're further up north in the summer, our days are much longer than yours. Like, it's daylight from 5 till 10 at night. So
yeah, but you're still got that angle.
Oh, that's true.
You don't get as much UV.
Not as much though. I mean, at that point,
yeah,
the angle of the Earth is we're getting a bit more sunlight, but and we get up to 40 degrees Celsius, 104 degrees Fahrenheit here too. So
yeah.
Yeah, but that's not the dry heat, is it?
No.
Here in the prairies it is, but it's dry cold and dry heat.
Not the heat, it's the humidity. Yeah.
Yeah, you guys have the humidity down by the Toronto area and Ottawa area, because you got the Great Lakes, but up here, it's pretty dry.
Well, do we have anything else for the show, Curtis?
Well, I did have a bunch of news stories keyed up, but I don't think we need to go through them all. Maybe rather than sharing screens and stuff here, I'll just mention where they came from, and I'll just kind of do a quick wrap up of them.
Okay.
So first one, congratulations to the Coco crew. John Linville mentioned that they've exceeded 90,000 total downloads over the entire run of their show now, which is a nice milestone to hit. I'm not sure when they're going to hit 100,000, but I'd imagine it'd be later this year. So, and since they're the kind of show that inspired us to start in the first place, and also inspired people to start going to the fest again, got to give them a shout out for that. Fedor Steeman had been looking into the Motorola RMS chipset, and if you've read the Boise Bill Guidis history book on the Coco, that was the chipset that Tandy was originally thinking of using on the Coco 3. It was 68,000 N69 compatible, supposedly, but it was over budget and wasn't being produced in time, and Tandy eventually switched to the Gimme. Plus, from what I understand, it wasn't really good with the 6809. It was just like barely passable. But it had been rumored for a while that had been basically just a spec. It never got fully produced beyond the prototype stage, but Fedora found some machines that actually are made with it that actually were sold, 68,000 base machines. So it's kind of interesting to see what was out there. So there's a whole discussion on Facebook about that, with some links to actual documents on some of these computers that were sold. BBC Micros, I think, were some of them. Quick mention, Ease of Use Beta 4 Release 2 is out. That was basically just a bug fix because we discovered that Thexter on 2 meg machines didn't run properly. It wasn't a hardware issue. It doesn't matter which 2 meg upgrade you had. It was a little software bug from the way Alan back in 92 tried to make it work on all Cocos. And none of us had 2 meg back then, so none of us tested it. So I had 2 meg after the fest, tested it, and it didn't work. So I released a fix. We also threw a couple extra games in there while we're at it.
I threaten to start a drinking game every time Curtis mentions ease of use.
You better get your Alcoholics Anonymous card ready then.
That's right.
Jason already talked about his stuff at Hamvention, so I skipped that one. There is some talks, I guess Brendan Donaghy's mentioned, and Ron Klein is talking with the MAME people about getting CoCoVGA possibly emulated in MAME, which I think would be a huge help for people wanting to develop software for it. They won't need the actual hardware to test stuff out if you want to use 64 column mode, the extra colors, the redefinable character sets, etc. So I'm really hoping that project goes through. I have one now finally, but it'd be nice for people that can't get it, or they don't have a compatible motherboard to fit it on with the current designs, to be able to program for it. It's an amazing card.
It sure is.
Yeah. The project that Nick and I did with the palette settings on the Coco 3 for cold Coco 1 and 2 P Mode 1 and 3 games, which we've discussed on the show before, has actually been starting to get some feedback with some alternative colors from other people now, and some CoCoVGA support. So there's been stuff like Invader's Revenge, there's been one for Puyan, a few others, where they've actually uploaded the disk images where you can, if you have a CoCoVGA, you can redefine the palettes and then play it with the same type of colors we're seeing on the Coco 3, or even better colors. Plus you can control the border on those, which you can't do in the Coco 3. So actually there's some enhancements there. So if you've been following that thread on Facebook, you try some of those if you have a CoCoVGA. Some pretty amazing looking stuff, which you can do with the proper 4 colors instead of just the 4 that the Motorola chip picked. Another one was, I'm hoping I'm pronouncing his name correctly here. Andre Ballista is working on an external video card for the Coco 1, 2, and 3, which is based on Coco de Moz, and I can't remember what his real name is, but that's his handle. He's doing a thing called the WordPack 2 Plus. Now, if you remember, the old WordPack was an 80 column card using the 6845 Motorola chip. This is actually using a Yamaha V9958 VDP video display processor chip with its own onboard 128K of video RAM. It supports RGB. It has hardware sprites up to 16 colors and 32 sprites on the screen at once, of which 8 can be on the same horizontal line. Has 32, 40, and 80 column text modes, which I mean, if you're plugging this into Coco 3, we already have that, but the Coco 1 and 2 could definitely use it. It also has hardware horizontal and vertical scrolling. Once again, the Coco 3 can do that as well. But the Coco 1 and 2, that's a nice addition. But it also has graphics up to 512 by 212 16 color, which is beyond the Coco 3's reach. And also a 256 by 212, which has 256, and he also had a couple modes up into the tens of thousands of colors here. So it sounds like it's really nice for doing color on. And he's already got Nitrous 9 80 column drivers existing for it that Coco de Moz written. So you actually can plug it into your Coco 1 2, get the right Nitrous 9 install, and you have 80 columns. Now, Andre's actually trying to make the board based on the original specs this guy did. And last I saw on the Coco Facebook page, he hasn't quite got it working yet. He's having sync problems. He can see that it is trying to draw, but it's just not syncing to his monitor correctly. So once he gets that fixed up, and if he can get that manufactured, because it kind of sounds like he was hinting he might manufacture the board for other people to buy it, that might be an available upgrade for all Coco owners and Dragon owners.
Well, Nick, imagine that. A Super Gunstar on that board.
Super Gunstar, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it takes a slot though, so you'll be using an MPI or.
Yeah.
Or if you maybe extend the design with a ROM on it or something, and a sound chip.
Imagine the BMP
and a real-time clock.
Yeah, there you go.
What we need is an SDC that plugs between the Coco and any other card.
Well, that's kind of Jim Brain's extender, right? 'Cause he's got the sound chip and RAM and flash ROM and all kinds of real-time clock and serial ports and stuff too.
Yeah, Jim Brand, I've actually talked to him a little bit at the show, so he's some minor mods and stuff, so looks like that's going to be coming fairly soon.
Yeah, and I'm helping work on the CoCoMem Junior and the CoCoMem Senior, I'm calling it, but the Coco 3 version of it too. So hopefully some drivers for that stuff too later. And some extra features got in there that the standard upgrades don't have. Next up on my list, Salmon Jonasson has been publishing up on Facebook the source code for the individual routines he used in his Coco 3 demo. So he's got, some of the sound routines here, and he's got his, rotating torus and stuff like that. So if you want to see how the madness was done, there's the actual source code, and eventually he's going to release a full demo with credits and stuff that actually didn't make it to the fest. So keep an eye out for that. But if you're learning assembly language, you want to learn some neat tricks, there's a whole bunch of them in there for you to peruse through. Davey Mitchell on Discord and then later on Facebook released a YouTube video showing a dragon game called Aussie, which I think you dive bomb your bird and you have to dive bomb and catch fish or something like that. But it's also using the pastel-y, buff, cyan, magenta, orange palette. Excellent contender for Nick's Coco 3 pack, just to mention. Boise Pete mentioned that the Rainbow Magazine preservation product for the original Rainbow, not the new one, is well underway at the Evangeline Parish Library, and he's got some pictures of some of the booklets put together. There's two different sizes. One if it's the magazine Rainbows, and a larger size if it was the newspaper version of Rainbow, and showing the progress and how it's all bound together and stuff, which is quite interesting. And it's quite nice that there's a professionally bound, archival version of this happening. Retrobreading we already talked about. And Ed Snyder, that was my last bit of news for now, had some updates on his new Coco 3 3D printed keyboard with pictures on Facebook, showing 3D printed keys that he's doing, and it's actually he's doing the whole keyboard, so it's the whole mechanical switch and everything else. And I'm definitely looking forward to that being an upgrade for at least one of my Cocos here. So
Curtis.
Yep.
I don't think he's 3D printing the keys, just the surround. He has the laser engraver that he's using on the pre-injected key, molded key keys. And so he's doing the lettering with that laser engraver, and then just the support and surround, I think it's being 3D printed.
Okay, thanks for the correction. Actually, I think I did know that. I just wrote it down wrong.
Ed mentioned in another discussion that he was working on a 3D printed case to put the keyboard in so that he could make a little USB adapter board so you could then plug that keyboard into a PC running VCC or one of the other emulators so that you could have a correct Coco keyboard on the emulator rather than having to translate the PC keyboard.
Which would work with the Coco Pi too, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I did see that mentioned too. Ed's a machine. He's got to be a cyborg of some sort. He just comes up with so much stuff, and he's manufacturing SDCs and everything else in the background, selling or this Mega Mini MPI and stuff here. He just cranks a dozen or so of those out a week, plus everything else he's working on, and then writes software too to show off like his sound cards and stuff. So I don't know how the heck he does it all.
And we believe he has a day job also.
Yeah, so rumor has it.
So, Curtis, do we have anything else?
Nope, that was my last story.
And that with the stories, that completes everything you got on your rundown, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Does anybody else have anything quick to interject for the Coco community?
Andre himself said he's thanks for the mention. He's still trying to get the sync issues identified and hopefully resolved.
Good.
I would
All
like
right.
to
Well,
something if possible.
What's that, David?
Oh, I'd like to interject if possible. I would like to say thank you to everyone that was in the community that was able to make Coco Fest this year. It certainly was great to see everyone that made.
Definitely.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So how many of you out there polished the bald head of David?
He wouldn't let me get close to him.
I did it, but I did it on the elevator before the doors were open for the public, so nobody got to see it.
Oh, okay.
We promise not to talk about that, Curtis.
Rub David for luck.
Yeah, and it worked. I mean, they had the elevator doors open within 30 minutes, 45 minutes. So,
although it was getting very hot in there.
I mean, with all the tools you guys
had, either David.
So with all the tools you guys had in the elevator, you couldn't open the doors?
No, we were stuck between floors. So.
Yeah, just hopefully nobody was using the elevator to go to the bathroom, or else you'd be going to the bathroom in there.
No comments.
Steve, that'd be like the P corner in the Orville.
I was going to say the Orville reference, the P corner.
P corner. Oh, who's going to clean the P corner? Excellent show, by the way. If you're not watching it, you should.
Everyone was gonna take David and push him up through the trapdoor in the top of the elevator.
Actually, they never even offered that as an option. They were just saying, just wait. Don't try to call through until they shut the power off, just in case it suddenly kicked on and severed one of us in half or something.
Well, that would have been a sight to see for sure.
Coco Fest Part 2.
Yeah. CoCoFest attendees, half off.
No.
Speaking French, you're going to be able to move it to Canada one of these years.
Whose entrails are these?
And on that note, I think we should just go ahead and do the extra.
Yep, I think so.
Jump the shark.
This concludes another episode of CoCoTALK, the world's leading live talk show featuring the Tandy Color computer. For all things CoCoTALK, visit us on the web at CoCoTalk.live. We'd love to hear from you. Send feedback, suggestions, even segments via email to CoCoTalk@CoCoTalk.live.
CoCoTALK is rocking the 8-bit world, keeping the Tandy flame alive. We may be mocked, but we'll never stop, 'cause CoCoTALK is rocking the 8-bit world.
Consider supporting the show with the purchase of merchandise from our retro swag shop at 8bit256.com. If you'd like to become a patron of the show, click the Patreon link at CoCoTalk.live. CoCoTalk would not exist without the community and its cast and crew and contributors.
CoCoTALK is rocking the 8-bit world, keeping the Tandy flame alive. We may be mocked, but we'll never stop, 'cause CoCoTALK is rocking the 8-bit world.
Thanks go to Curtis Boyle, David Ladd, Mark Overholzer, Grant Leedy, Bruce Moore, Nick Marentes, Ron Delvaux, Rick Adams, Jason Reichert, Richard Lorbieski, Jim Brain, Tom C., Rob Inman, Mark Bosley, Brian Joyce, Ken Reichert, David O'Connor, Brian Weasler, Terry Steggy, John Strong, and many more, especially Steve Bjork for his production suggestions. Please help support the CoCo community by visiting some of its contributors. The CoCo Crew podcast at CoCoCrew.org. Glenside Color Computer Club, host of CoCoFest at GlensideCCC.com. Retro Innovations at Go4Retro.com. Tandy Assembly at TandyAssembly.com. Boyson Technologies at BoysonTech.com. Get your own switcheroo and wallaby cable at CoCoMan.biz. Cloud9 Technologies at Cloud9Tech.com. The CoCoTalk theme song is copyright 2008 by D. Bruce Moore and Greg Sheeler. Mixed, mastered, and produced by D. Bruce Moore.
See the lack of Coco stuff behind me in that last clip. It's amazing how much it's changed.
Well,
Okay,
thank
are we
you
no
all
longer
for the
live?
show.
Yeah,
I know
we're still
Stevie
live.
will appreciate it.
Oh, okay.
Yep, thanks for everybody coming out and joining us on the show here. And
It's good when we can give Stevie a day off and not have to worry about putting the show together.
I have a couple things to share when we're no longer live. Let me know.
Okay, so bye-bye. Everybody wave bye-bye.
Thanks, York. Thanks, Curtis. And thanks, Mark.
Push the button, Frank.
Hey, everyone.
Bye, everyone.